All right, hello YouTube. It looks like we are now live. Thank you for bearing with me. It has been a bunch of shenanigans the last I don't know what 30 something hours. Um, but yeah, I'll get to that as soon. Let me hit the intro and I'll do it as part of the podcast proper. But hello Baraki, hello Mike. Let me get over to live chat, not top chat. Thanks for joining. Let me go ahead and hit the intro, and we will get started with the episode and dive right in.
The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Go then. There are other worlds than these. Death, but not for you, gunslinger. It's time we had our own palaver, I think, and it's going to take a while.
And yet, dauntless, the slug horn to my lips I set, and blew. Child Roland to the Dark Tower came.
We are content, one from many. Let the palaver begin.
Hello and welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is a podcast covering Stephen King's magnum opus, the Dark Tower series. My name is Tad, and we're here for the year-end bash. I don't know what this would be now. I know we've been going 8 years, so is that ninth year-end bash? I know we're 8 years. We started in 2015, so that would have been let's see, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. And then, so this is the ninth. That's what I figured. So ninth year-end bash. Or actually, maybe we didn't do it. I think we've done it maybe every year. I don't know if we did the live call-in necessarily right away, because I don't think we did any live shows early on. But thank you everyone for joining here in the chat live, and also everyone just on the podcast side or watching the video in the future. Definitely always appreciate all the support. Let me go ahead and hit the intro stuff real quick, and then I'll talk about why we are basically 26 hours or so late from what we should have been here live. But let me dive into that stuff real quick. First of all, it is a roundtable, so we will warn you about spoilers. We will probably anything from the main Dark Tower storyline will be spoiled, but there may be some other tertiary stuff that we cover that may get spoiler stuff as well. I try to keep the non-Dark Tower stuff a little bit lighter, but then again, I don't know. I don't think King really holds hard to like spoilers being a thing that ruins a story. So I don't think I'm like as hardcore as some people on that. Next up, if you want to find the show, you can find it on Apple Podcasting, stream on Spotify, as well as now on Amazon Music and Audible, as well as any podcasting service that you may have out there. I know there's a million wonderful apps for podcasts, and we should be available on all of those. If you want to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever that is possible, definitely appreciate that. Then over here on YouTube, if you want to join the show live and be part of the live chat and be part of the episode, you can do that anytime at youtube.com/darktowerpalaver, as well as you can find all the old shows. Everything we've done live stays there in the archive, so you can go and watch old shows as well. With that, I keep forgetting to mention, if you want to comment on the videos, I do always get notifications on that, and so if you have something that you wanted to bring up and you were listening to a show 2 years later, you can always drop a comment, and I will try to respond as best I can. And then if you want to, on the YouTube side, if you could like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. That way, if there's any things like happen this weekend that have to move around, the notifications will let you know. Once I realized I would have internet eventually, and when I got it back online, the first thing I did is went and created a new show with this time. So that should hopefully have been helpful to anyone that has the notifications. Then if you want to find the show notes, you can do that at darktowerpalaver.com, as well as that is the hub for all things Dark Tower Palaver. Links to everything about the show is over there. Then if you want to support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. And then if you want to contact the show, you can do that in a number of ways. Email is the best way. Email the show at show@darktowerpalaver.com. Just show at darktowerpalaver.com. Then we're on Facebook, facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. On Twitter, at darktowerpod, which is at darktowerpod. And then on Instagram, is just Dark Tower Palaver, all one word. So that is all the intro stuff out of the way. So yeah, let me go ahead and first of all, I guess I'll just explain the shenanigans. So woke up yesterday, normal time. I'm on vacation, so I slept in a little bit. And I think my internet was working then, but shortly, I mean, I was just browsing around on my phone, and somewhere in that, like, probably hour after I woke up, my internet went out, and I figured it was just my router. It does go off every once in a while. You should restart those things. So I went down, restarted it, went through about 20-30 minutes trying everything I could because it was not working. Eventually called my internet service provider, and I've actually had them for a couple years now, as long as we've been doing live streams, I think, because I was always nervous about back when I had Comcast, because they have decent download speeds if you paid for it, but their upload speeds are terrible. When I got fiber, I was very happy to do these live streams because I figured it would be fine because the upload and download speeds are all great. Have had no issues with them, knock on wood, up until this. Called them. They, of course, tried to give me the crappy, act like a 20th century cable company. Told me they'd be here on the 2nd of January to look at it because something was wrong that they couldn't do virtually. They had to send a tech out. I told them that was unacceptable. There's no way we're going to wait that long. And they said they'd send someone today. Of course, they gave me the whole old school anytime between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. The guy got here, I don't know, in the afternoon somewhere, about the time that I jumped on and added this new live stream. And I think it was right about the time we should have been going live. It was about the time the internet came back on, but I still had to do some prep because all my prep is done online with digital online stuff. Nothing's hard like on my hard drive, so I couldn't even polish up the last bit of prep work for the show. So until I had internet, so. But yeah, got here just in time. So that's what happened. Basically, the guy got here. He went and checked the line, and he did say that the line looked like it was like not cut. He says it may have even been chewed. So he suspects maybe a squirrel or chipmunk or something in the neighborhood may have been feasting on the line or chewing or something. So I guess I need a Billy Bumbler to come in the neighborhood and kill some squirrels. Boy. So that is the shenanigans that's been going on. It is a very, very interesting thing to have no internet for, I don't know, probably 27 or so hours in the modern day and age. There's a lot of things. I have a lot of smart home stuff, as well as entertainment. It was very, very interesting to not have internet. But here we are. I was really worried that they wouldn't get out today, but he did get here, so that is great. Glad to have internet again. Glad to be here with you. In the chat, hello, Baraki, Mike, thank you guys. Happy New Year. We are indeed approaching the new year. We are New Year's Eve, if that's such a thing. But yeah, I also did figure out, I think I mentioned on the last episode that I didn't, or maybe it was even the Geekery Abides. Somewhere I mentioned that the tablet that I've been using for the longest time to kind of be the hub of the show. In the old days, I used to even run the sound effects off of it, but I've taken that off. But I always still would run the Skype from that. But I did grab, I had a Chromebook that I got not too long ago and decided to try to set that up. And I do think I got it set up. So I do think we've got Skype for call-ins. So I have that up on the screen throughout the show. If you would like to call in, if you want to be part of the chat and stuff, that's totally fine too. But if you wanted to call in and be part of the show, just download Skype if you don't already have it. If you don't, I totally understand because it is Skype and it's not as fancy as the newer stuff like Zoom and all the other stuff. I need to figure out at some point how to do like Discord. I've heard that's a really good way to do voice, but we've been hit or miss on that using it for Patreon. So I need to get more confident in how to use that properly before I transition over to that. But yeah, that is the normal traditional thing we do for the year-end bash. I know that the calls have definitely gone way downhill over the last number of years. I think ever since we started doing these regularly live and people are able to be involved in the chats and stuff. We've also even seen a decline in emails. I think it's just because now everyone having an ability to be more involved with the show real time in the chats. I just don't think calls and emails are as, as big I don't think people are as into those. I mean, we still get them on occasion, but that's totally fine. I'm glad to have you guys as part of the show anyway that happens. So that is all of the intro stuff. I will have announcements about 2024 at the end of the episode in the Palaver section. I have a couple things to talk about there. So let's just go ahead and dive on into the news. Let me find it. I think it's this one. I want to make sure the Skype one is unmuted, so if someone does call, there's a screen off to the side of me here. It's definitely a lot tougher to look at now with everything else on the other screen, but hopefully that should be audible if anyone does call in. All right, so jumping into the news, the first thing we've got here is actually a sad one. The Dollar Babies program that Stephen King's been going for a long time has now officially ended. So the headline is Stephen King's Dollar Baby short film program has ended. This is from Emily Burnham from the Bangor Daily News on December 13th, 2023. And basically the headline covers it. This was kind of discovered from people on, I believe it was Stephen King's website that had a little post about it. I actually caught wind of it before I even checked his website. I saw a bunch of people on social media tweeting at King, saying like, "Hey, what the hell? What's up with this?" This has obviously been a long-standing thing, and I think it took a couple days before he finally answered, but I found this article that kind of covers the whole thing. So basically going in here, so after 40 years, which is crazy to think that's been going that long, and over 300 short films, Stephen King's Dollar Babies program officially ended this month. And I believe at this point it is now ended. They were a little bit nebulous about what that meant. They just said somewhere in December 2023 it would end. So either way, though, there's a day and a half or a half a day left of the month. So I'm pretty sure it's gone now. So King eventually tweeted, I think it took a couple days after getting an influx of tweets asking him what the hell. He tweeted, quote, "Margaret, the mistress of the Dollar Babies, is retiring." So it sounds like Margaret, whoever she is, has basically been the one that's ran this program for the entirety of its existence. And with her retiring, King is just wrapping it up. So that's totally understandable. Hi, Zach. Welcome in the chat. Mike says, "I feel strong about this. If they, I'd feel stronger about this if they made them available to the public." I agree. There was the 1 year COVID related, was it 21 maybe, where they had an all digital film festival, which kind of got around some of the rules, and it allowed people to have access to some Dollar Baby content for the first time ever online. But sadly, we did not plan very well on that one because we ended up live streaming right in the middle of one of our episodes live stream right in the middle of when that was happening. I kind of wish now that we had maybe delayed that and actually watched some of them. But that, whatever, live and learn. But going on here, Dollar Babies is a decades-long program in which King licensed the rights to a select number of his short stories for amateur filmmakers or film students for them to make short films with. In a 1996 interview with Frank Darabont, King said, quote, "Over the objections of my accountant, who saw all sorts of possible legal problems, I established a policy which I still hold today. I will grant any student filmmaker the right to make a movie out of any of my short stories I have written." And then he says, "Not novels. That would be ridiculous. So long as the film rights are still mine to assign." So it means that they can make a film, but they don't ever gain ownership of the rights. I do know this article doesn't cover it, but I know over the years we've had a few different times we've talked about this. I believe another thing that he required of the people that do these Dollar Babies was they had to send a copy of their film to him to watch. And yeah, there's a few other things that are covered in this article, but it did not cover that aspect. So they couldn't be released commercially. They could not be longer than 45 minutes. So basically it had to be a short film. That is, I think, where the film industry draws the line. If a movie is 46 minutes long, it is considered a feature film. Anything below 45 minutes or lower is considered a short film. So that makes sense. And it goes on and also says, and can only be shown at film festivals, film schools, and at private events. Again, a lot of people have also found that not doing it commercially means that it can't be put on YouTube and monetized, which I totally makes sense. So that's where a lot of us have not, like Mike's referring to in the chat, a lot of us have not had access to a lot of this content over the years. But yeah, it's unfortunate. But then also the whole crux of this and the reason it's called Dollar Babies is because then the filmmakers only pay a single dollar to license whatever story that they have. The first Dollar Baby ever was the Boogeyman, and it was by Bangor native Jeff Shiro. I'm not sure. That's kind of interesting because, of course, we just know this past year the Boogeyman is made into a feature film full on. So that's kind of cool, though, that one of the first one he ever licensed out was to a Bangor native. That's kind of cool. The most famous Dollar Baby director is Frank Darabont, who in 1983 made a short film from the King story, The Woman in the Room. King liked what he saw so much it actually became a big part of King having the faith enough to sell Frank the rights to the Shawshank Redemption, which of course he'd go on to make one of the greatest movies of all time out of. And I do know we've caught that somewhere over the course of this show where it was actually talked about where Darabont's Dollar Baby was kind of a, it turned into an audition. It wasn't meant as an audition, but King liked what he did so much that later down the road, as Darabont started to get a little bit more into the industry, King was open to selling him Shawshank, which is pretty cool. So definitely that's the end of the article, but I have a note here just I wanted to put out is a huge shout out to Margaret, who has kept this amazing program going for over 4 decades. We wish her all the best in retirement. And yeah, I think the thing that scared a lot of people before King finally explained why it was ending, was there were some people I think that were starting to worry that maybe King was wrapping things up and was looking at retirement on his side of things. Luckily it turned out not to be the case, and it is just, Margaret, whoever she is, that's ran this program for over 40 years, retiring. So, best retirement, to her. Hopefully she, enjoys retirement. For 40 years working with young amateur filmmakers I don't know what else. She may have done some other stuff with King. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's see. Mike says, "Look at the cabinets behind the bar patrons. Looks like Stephen King movie props." And yeah, so that was actually from the article. It is basically, I think they mentioned it somewhere. I forgot to grab it. I think it was one of the more recent Dollar Babies things that was actually filmed in Bangor. It's not it wasn't a name of a story I recognize, but it's the picture that they used for the article, probably because it was probably the most recent thing that they did any news coverage on, Dollar Baby wise. So I don't remember the name of the story, but if you go to the show notes, you can find the link when I post the show notes to the article, and it'll mention what it is. I think it was something that was filming earlier this year, so that's pretty cool. Next up, this is just a fun little short one here. And the headline is Henry Thomas hopes to reunite with Mike Flanagan in the Dark Tower. Of course, that perks our ears right up here. And this is by Spencer Perry from comicbook.com on December 2nd, 2023. So, of course, the article points out that Henry Thomas was Elliot from E.T. I believe by law everyone has to mention that. But points out that he's had a great career, especially in genre projects as an adult. And that is largely thanks to his collaborations with Mike Flanagan. We know, of course, he's been in a vast number of Mike Flanagan's things. Next to Mike's wife, I think that I believe Henry might be the number one person in the Flanagan regulars crew. In fact, he's the first one that I locked on to. He's the first one that I realized was in everything. It was only later that I started to realize how many of the others were in there as they showed up more and more, maybe had bigger roles in later things, that I started to realize, like, oh shit, there's some of these people that are in repeated things. So Thomas did an interview with comicbooks.com while publicizing his role in Pet Sematary Bloodline, because, yes, he did have a role in that. Sorry about that. Something is coming up on the stupid thing, but it's not a call. It's just a little pop-up, of course, Microsoft with that. So he was in Pet Sematary Bloodline, and they asked him if there were any other King works that he might be interested in, because he's actually done a number of them. He did a few with Mike Flanagan, but he also has done some other odds and ends Stephen King stuff. At one point, I had an idea of maybe going through and trying to find and catalog how many people have done repeated Stephen King collaborators. That was a lot of work that I was not able to put in, so that's still not anything I've done. But I do wonder if Thomas might compete with some of the top end people, because not only all the Flanagan stuff, but he's done a couple others as well, including his Pet Sematary Bloodlines. But Thomas said, quote, well, supposedly Mike's going to do the Dark Tower, so I'd love to have a part in that, but who knows how that will turn out. But that's possibly one. Other than that, over the years, I've kind of just learned to just wait and see what happens. I take things that I can get, and projects come to me sometimes, and otherwise you're just at the mercy of the fates. So of course that's the end of his quote. Of course, he is a longtime Hollywood person, so he understands that there's a lot of things that start development that don't ever get anywhere. And I don't know, you can't really count on things a lot when you're an actor or a director or writer or whoever else in Hollywood. So still pretty cool though. Cool to hear him calling it out there. We just did our dream casting with the Flanagan stuff earlier this year. I think we've done 2 dream castings Flanagan based. I think we did one way early in the year, then we did one right on the heels of Fall of the House of Usher. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, Henry Thomas has popped up in every one of my dream castings since the Flanagan announcement, which was, is that a year or 2 years ago now? It's been a while. I think it was January or late December that it was announced that Flanagan had the rights to the Dark Tower, but I feel like that may have been I think that may have been 2 years ago. May have been like the end of 21, early 22. So it's been a long time now, it feels like. Of course, strikes and everything, happened that, caused things to be a little bit, dragged out, unfortunately. So yeah, that's cool though. Can't wait to see some Dark Tower news on the horizon. Hopefully, definitely interesting to see one of the Flanagan regulars talking Dark Tower to a news outlet. That's pretty cool. Makes me kind of wonder if Flanagan, I don't know if Henry's a reader, because if he is a reader, he would know the Dark Tower series, but if he's not a reader, we all know that even in the King realm, there's a lot of constant readers that haven't read the Dark Tower. So it makes me wonder if Flanagan has talked to him, and that's the reason that when he's asked this question, the Dark Tower comes to mind, because I don't know, unless he's a hardcore fan that we just don't know, but it just kind of makes me speculate a little bit. It makes me wonder. So hello, Travis. Welcome. Yeah, that's just a short one. That was just like a one quote thing. This next one's really exciting, and if you listen to Geekery Abides, I covered this one already a little bit, but this goes a little bit more in depth. And this one is titled Stranger Things New Director Proves Season 5's Returning to Its Roots. And this is by Days Johnston from the Inverse on December 20th, 2023. This is a rumor that's been out there from a Hollywood insider, but this is the one that I was able to find that kind of recapped enough that was worth covering without just building it out myself. The article rightly points out that in this age where Stranger Things is one of the largest shows in the entire streaming universe, including last season, especially where much of the episodes were really long and a lot of them cost as much as some Hollywood blockbusters. It's really hard to remember a time that it was just this small, risky sci-fi period piece that Netflix was gambling on. It is really hard to imagine that now just because of how big it's become. It kind of reminds me of, you hear about these like people of a certain age that, talked about, they were in, is it Liverpool where the Beatles were at, and they just saw that the Beatles originally like playing like pubs and these small things. And it's like, I can imagine how hard that must be to imagine at this point. One of the greatest bands of all time playing like a small little pub and stuff back in the day. But it feels like that was Stranger Things. It was such a small and whatever. I remember kind of discovering it mostly because of like, it felt so Stephen King-ish. That's the reason I even ever gave it a shot. They use like the Stephen King text format that you'd see on the Stephen King novels and stuff. And it just felt very Stephen King there early on. Then it's blown up to become as big of a show as it is. So then it goes on. Not only not that it needs to be said, but the Duffer Brothers have also said it countless times that the biggest inspiration for the show was Stephen King. This article doesn't mention it, but I know we've covered it over the years, where they were actually they pitched themselves, the Duffer Brothers. They were nobodies at the time, but they pitched themselves to Warner Brothers to do the It adaptation, because this is back before God, I don't remember, because we had Cary Fukunaga was involved, and then we have, of course, the Muschietti siblings. But this is before, I know it was before the Muschietti stuff, but I can't remember where it falls in line with the Cary Fukunaga version. but they basically pitched themselves to do a modern It adaptation before the new ones ever came out, and they were turned down. And part of that being turned down is they went and basically created Stranger Things. So obviously you can kind of see the DNA of it. It does feel very It feels very Stephen King, and that's kind of partially some of the inspiration for it. Is they wanted to make It, they couldn't make It, so they decided to create their own thing, and that became Stranger Things. So Hollywood Insider has reported a rumor that the show is in talks to hire none other than Frank fucking Darabont to direct 2 episodes in this final season. This had me excited as all hell when I read this, because Frank has obviously not directed anything in a while. I believe I've been hearing people say that Frank is actually retired after all the stuff with The Walking Dead, where he got fired off of that after some conflicts with AMC. Of course, and there were some lawsuits about him and them kind of shorting him on money and stuff. But ultimately, it doesn't seem like Frank's done a lot in a long time. So the idea of Frank Darabont directing episodes of Stranger Things is absolutely incredible to me. This is so fitting. Grab arguably the most successful adapter of Stephen King stories ever to direct any Stephen King projects, and then bring him to plug him into a couple episodes of one of the most heavily inspired King things of the modern era. The signs all point to the final season episodes approaching run times of being feature film length. They won't just be short little 40-minute things, but they may be 90-minute episodes. And also the budgets are probably going to also match summer blockbusters just like last season. So this is going to be a big deal. I already dig the show, but if this gets put in ink and it is made official, you better believe that I'm going to find, once they announce which episodes are which, I'm going to find the episodes with him and circle those with the heaviest marker I have, because those will be the episodes I look forward to the most, because Frank is a fucking amazing director, and I can't wait to see what he might do playing in the Stranger Things realm, the man that brought us the amazing stuff like Shawshank, Green Mile, and The Mist. Let's see. Let's see. What am I missing in the chat here? Mike says HT as Per Callahan. Henry Thomas. Okay. I think somebody mentioned that in one of the dream castings I've seen. I don't remember if it was on our episode or not. That could be a good one for sure. I think we actually discussed that on the last episode we did after the fall of the House of Usher, where we talked about is Henry Thomas, because it seems like a lot of the roles that he might fall into would fall later in the series, so we may not even see him until the 3rd or 4th season of the show. So that would be interesting, but I do think there's more fits for him later in the show than there would be early. I can't remember what my Dreamcasts are now, because my brain is so going constantly, but I do remember having a thought at some point that Henry Thomas could also be a very good Jack Mort. I think he's I think he can play kind of the dead-eyed psycho a little bit, like, of course we saw what he did as playing the bartender in Dr. Sleep. I look at kind of what he did there and just imagine what he could do as, like, be a very personable, jovial kind of guy as the act, but then it just drops off and you just get those dead eyes when he like scares people and stuff. So I think if you want to go earlier on, I do think Jack Mort would be an incredible spot to cast Henry Thomas for sure. And then Neo Rage says, do you think the Oi was brought back at the end? That was my biggest sadness in the series. I don't know if he's brought back full on, but I know after Susanna goes through the door, when King is telling us kind of, he doesn't give us a lot, but he kind of speculates on some stuff about their future. The Dean brothers, which is of course Eddie and Jake in that world. And I believe King even speculates that at some point they're probably going to buy a dog that is probably going to, I'm getting chills just thinking about it, that, this dog will probably fill that role of Oi in that new world. Of course, it's our world, so it wouldn't be a Billy Bumbler. But I believe King does kind of give some hints that potentially Susanna and those Dean brothers will end up finding themselves a very, very intelligent dog that will probably be the spiritual twinner of Oi. So definitely one of the saddest elements of the series for sure. Let's see, and then Heil Chris. Let's see, Baraki. His name is Frank fucking Darabont, and I shall refer to him as such from now on. And I mean, honestly, that's what he should be, because that dude, like, if there's one person that's done King works that can just point to the scoreboard more than anyone, and if anyone wanted to argue with him, he could just point at the scoreboard. It's that dude, because he's 3 for 3. One of the greatest films of all time, from Shawshank. The Green Mile is absolutely incredible. A lot of people underrate The Mist, but I think The Mist is one of the greatest things ever made for King as well. I just think that a lot of people hate the ending so much that they allow that to pollute their thoughts of the whole movie, but it's an incredible adaptation as well. Let's see. And then Travis says grown-up Elliot should be Dandolo. So Henry Thomas is Dandolo. That would be an interesting one. In fact, the article there dove into some old Flanagan quotes that we talked about already over the course of this year sometime. And he mentioned Dandolo. And so when I was kind of skimming the article after I saw the initial quote, I saw something where it was like, oh, there's this character Dandolo. And I was like, immediately I thought that it was Henry Thomas saying that. And then I was like freaking out, like, oh my God, has he already been pitched on playing Dandolo maybe? And then no, it turned out it was just some older quotes from Mike Flanagan that was talking about that. But that's not a bad casting either. I think Henry can fit in a lot of interesting places for sure. Let's see. And then Chris says it's going to be hard to cast Jake and keep him at the right age between the Gunslinger, the Wastelands, and then on. Yeah, I kind of wonder how they're going to deal with that. I think honestly they're just going to probably roll with it. I mean, if you just cast him younger than he needs to be, cast closer to like a 10-year-old. And then, I mean, honestly, I know the course of the books actually only take place over the course of less than a year, I think, is what a lot of people peg it at, in somewhere in the 6 to 8 month range that the journey takes. But I don't think that there's any reason you couldn't add time to the journey, especially because time's so funny in that world anyway. So I think you cast like a 10-year-old kid, and then you just speed through. I mean, as you're, just record or film as fast as possible. Of course, the hard part is going to be when you get to the part where you do the book 4 stuff with all the flashbacks. If they don't do that as a season, though, I know we've done some speculating on the show where we talked about potentially that one of the 2 movies, because he wants to do 5 seasons and 2 movies. I kind of wonder if one of the movies, if not both of the movies, could be Wizarding Glass. Because then you could just mainline the series, being 5 seasons to cover everything from book 1 through book 7, get to the end, get to the tower, that kind of stuff, and then you're only dealing with a kid aging 5 years. I don't know. I think that could be a possibility, but who knows? We don't know yet how exactly Flanagan intends to do it. But of course, age for the Jake actor is probably going to be the most difficult aspect to deal with, because when kids are at that age, man, once they start hitting puberty, I mean, one of my favorite stories of puberty screwing up a film a bit was the Edward Furlong in Terminator 2. They ended up having to go back and redub the entire movie because he basically went through puberty during the movie, and his voice dropped pretty significantly like halfway through the movie. So they had like half the footage he sounded one way, half the footage he sounded another. So they had to go back, get him in the studio at the end of it all, and record every bit of dialogue from the entire movie, and then put it so it was like consistent throughout the entire movie. So you definitely have a lot to deal with a Jake actor for sure. But like I said, I think my biggest thing is ultimately if Flanagan wanted to just make it seem like in that world that's time is so fluid that maybe that journey does take that long, and you let Jake age up to the point where that's kind of the indicator of how long the story is taking in the TV show. So let's see. Mike says, or as Stephen King himself, if he's part of the project, talking about Henry Thomas. And then Neo says, thank you for answering. No problem. I mean, Stephen King, that's an interesting thing. I really hope that Flanagan keeps that. There's always been rumors that King wants that element removed from any adaptation. I really hope that's not true, because I think it's it's too big a part of the story, and it's also just so Dark Tower that I think it would be a damn shame to lose that element of the adaptation. Of course, Joe Hill would probably be the best. If you Google a picture of Joe Hill, he looks exactly like Stephen King did in the 70s or 80s. So that would be the most perfect, but honestly, that might be pushing it kind of hard to have a non-actor come in and play such a crucial role. So yeah, Henry Thomas fitting into a role like that could be fine. I mean, if the man can go and play Jack Torrance in Doctor Sleep, he could pretty much pull anything off, I believe. So. And Travis says The Mist is a fucking 10. I totally agree. Mike says Mist is 11. Jane Thomas for bonus points. Indeed. I'm glad we're all on agreement then on that, at least. But I do think there's a lot of people that will talk about Darabont stuff, and they'll just rave and rant and rave and go on and on about Shawshank and Green Mile, and that's all they talk about. And it always pisses me off because I'm like, dude, The Mist is fucking awesome, dude. I mean, I get it because like horror gets always gets disrespected, and you know, Shawshank and Green Mile are both dramas. Those are both going to be movies that your average person are going to maybe gravitate towards and love a lot more than a horror movie. But yeah, I don't know. Neo Rage says, "Do you think Hugh Laurie from House MD would make a good Roland?" I have dreamcasted him over the years. I mean, we've only been doing this podcast for 8 years now, but you know, dating back, I mean, I think up to the point when the movie came out in 2017, we had somewhere in the realm of over 10 years of developmental hell for the development of this movie. I mean, we went from through J.J. Abrams was on at one point, Ron Howard at one point. It's just bounced around to so many filmmakers and stuff. And I know over the years, even dating back to the days of like internet message boards, you know, back I know IMDb had some message boards in the old days that they've killed. I used to go on there because they'd have future projects, and I'd go onto the Dark Tower one and talk. And I think I've thrown out Hugh Laurie a number of times. I haven't necessarily dreamcasted him anytime in the last number of years, but I do think he'd be a great actor for the role for sure. And honestly, I think he's a little bit more realistic. I think the thing that breaks my heart sometimes is some people with some of their dreamcasts make it seem like this is going to be the one of the highest shows of all time in terms of you know, budgets and everything else. Like the way people are casting it, they're casting some of the top like A-list movie actors that are probably never going to do a television role, let alone one that's going to take, you know, potentially 5 to 8 years to film. You know, if you count the 5 years of a TV series plus 2 movies, like that's going to be a long project. And I just think some people, you know, and it's cool. I get it. I get the idea of dream casting. You want to go whatever, but there is always part of me that wonders about realistic, like who's realistically going to sign on. And I think Hugh Laurie is definitely one that would potentially be more realistic than, I don't even know. I can't pick one off the top of my head. But I know like one right now that everyone's going gaga over is Cillian Murphy, rightfully so. He did a brilliant job in Oppenheimer. I've been seeing some stuff for him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well. But I mean, he's about to potentially come up to the next couple months. He might be winning an Oscar for his role as J. Robert Oppenheimer. So like if he wins an Oscar, I just kind of wonder, is he going to have the same openness after that to go and do TV shows or you know, do a 15 movie commitment for Marvel? I just don't know. It's always interesting when actors hit a certain level of success for sure. But yeah, Hugh Laurie's not a bad one because he definitely has the eyes. He's a good actor. I remember back in the day when I threw it on like IMDb message boards. I remember one person pushing back on me because they legit thought that he was handicapped because of his role in House. And I was like, see, that just proves my point of how good of an actor he is. The dude's, for one, he's not American, he's British. For two, he has no physical ailments at all. And of course, I know in the last couple of years, he's done a couple shows. I think he did one for Amazon not too long ago. So I do think that, you know, that people have seen him in some other stuff now. So, you know, maybe people wouldn't get as mixed up in that. But I do think that speaks to the quality of his acting. Let's see. And then Baraki says HL is an amazing actor and can drop the UK accent perfectly, and can also adopt Roland's attitude very well, I feel. Yeah, he's obviously 10, 15 years older now than back when I used to dreamcast him. Not that age is the most important thing for Roland. I think that with who Roland is, and potentially the fact that he's potentially lived hundreds and hundreds of years, if not close to 1,000 years maybe. I can't remember, there's one point in the books where someone says Gilead has been gone for 500, 600 years, whatever it is. It's been gone for many centuries, and Roland was obviously there in Gilead. So he's a very, very old person, even though it doesn't. So I think that gives you some flexibility with casting people. Of course, you can't cast a 97-year-old Clint Eastwood, unfortunately, but beyond that, I think anyone from the ages of probably 30 that you could try to age up with makeup a little bit, up to like, I would say maybe 60. I think you'd probably be safe to cast Roland anywhere in that range. That's a 30-year window, but I think that he could fit anywhere in there for sure. Mike says, if I was Emperor of the World, Peter Jackson would be the producer consultant on the Mike Flanagan Dark Tower series, help get it done. Yeah, I mean, so long as New Zealand has something that looks like Midworld, because it seems like that everything he films is always down there. And then Nia Rach says, I always picture Roland's words coming out of his mouth. Yeah, it's definitely he's an interesting pick for sure. Like I said, it's been a long time since I picked him. I don't think in the course of this 8 years of doing this podcast, I don't know that I've ever picked him on this show, but he is one that I've dreamcasted over the years. So definitely an interesting choice for Roland Deschain. So next up, we had a sad passing not too long ago of Norman Lear. And this article went into some new stuff I've never heard before. But it says, "Do you love Stand By Me?" Stephen King reminds fans that they have Norman Lear to thank. This is from Eric Eisenberg from Cinema Blend on December 7th, 2023. So after Norman Lear's recent passing, Stephen King recalled how the legendary filmmaker saved the film Stand By Me. Based on the novella The Body, Rob Reiner's film is in contention for one of the greatest King adaptations of all time, and one you can always use to prove that King does not only do horror. King reflected on the passing of the 101-year-old icon Norman Lear when he tweeted out that without Lear, Stand By Me would not exist. So basically, days before the film was about to begin production, Columbia Pictures, for some reason, decided that they were going to they were considering pulling the plug on the entire thing. And then it's actually interesting. This article actually goes and finds a news article from the Chicago Tribune from 1986, so the year the movie came out. And it says, so this is starting to excerpt from there, and it says in 1986, it says Stand By Me was financed and greenlit by Embassy Pictures, which is owned by Lear and Jerry Percino. But Embassy was purchased by Coca-Cola, which is interesting. And it's also funny because Coca-Cola owned Columbia Pictures at the time. The head of Columbia decided that he wanted to kill the film outright. And then Martin Schaefer, the previous head of Embassy, made a desperate move to save the film. And he approached Norman Lear and asked him to personally finance the film. Because that was the big thing that Columbia was sticking on was, they didn't want to pay for it. They were worried there wasn't going to be any stars because you had to have nothing but kids. I believe Rob Reiner was considered unproven at the time. There was a lot of things that were in flow there. So they pulled the plug on it. This guy, Martin Schaefer, the previous head of the Embassy, asks Lear, "Hey, can you finance this movie?" So Lear loved the script, and he had actually worked with Rob Reiner. They both worked together on All in the Family. Screenwriter Raymond Gideon said, "Thank God Norman Lear said he would personally finance the $8 million budget from his own pocket." He believed that much in the script and in Rob Reiner, who he had co-starred for him all those years in All in the Family. The amazing thing is that Norman was willing to gamble $8 million on a picture that didn't even have a distribution deal with a major studio. Because when Columbia killed it, they basically said, we're not going to help, we're not going to finance this, and we're not going to distribute it. We're done. We're out of this. We're not making this movie. And then, to basically save it out of the jaws of death, they asked Lear. Lear actually puts up $8 million of his personal money to fund the movie. And then the writer goes on and says, "We assured each other that we'd find a distributor when the movie was completed." So they basically filmed the entire thing without knowing if they would have distribution for it, which is another interesting gamble. And then in a twist of fate, Columbia ended up being the ones that ended up getting the distribution right to the film anyway. So they didn't pay for it, but they ended up coming around to it. Apparently some execs got their hands on the final movie as it was shot, and they ended up calling up Norman Lear and congratulating him after they saw the film. So that's a really interesting story. I mean, of course, we all love Stand By Me, but I never knew that story, and it just so ultimately, rest in peace, Norman Lear. Not only his massive legacy as being the godfather of the sitcom, but he saved one of the greatest Stephen King films of all time from certain death using his own personal money, which is so unprecedented. I've always heard people talk about, like, oh, well, why don't these actors or these directors or whoever, fund their own stuff? And it's like, generally the thought process is you always work with other people's money, not your own, because it just changes the dichotomy a lot. So there's not a lot of filmmakers, even filmmakers that have a lot of money, or Stephen King. I know there's even people have asked, why doesn't Stephen King, with all of his riches, finance like a Dark Tower adaptation? And that's just not the way it goes. Generally speaking, most of the people, there's just an idea. It's like, maybe it's like Scarface is never get high on your own supply, but there's just an element of like, never put up your own money. It's easier to let someone else finance it, whatever. So Norman Lear breaking one of the, kind of an industry rule by putting up his own private money to fund the movie. So that's really cool, kind of a cool story. let's see. And then Mike says 8 million is a lot, really a lot then. Exactly. Like, I know that it's easy to just be very blasé about that, but yeah, $8 million in the mid 80s, that would be worth significantly more. But even still today, like, you know, that's a lot to ask like a person today to pull $8 million out of the bank and finance a movie or something. So that's incredible. So rest in peace, Norman Lear. And it's kind of cool to hear. I always love these stories about how things came to be and some of the struggles they had. So I'm just going to pause again and just call out. This is the year-end bash, so we do have the call-in ability. If you want to, if you have Skype, just look us up at Dark Tower Palaver. We will take calls through the duration of the show. We will try to keep, you know, if you want to chat, that's totally something you could do. Just ask, just not to stay on super long, I guess. We've never really done any time limits or anything, but you know, just so we're get out of here in a relative amount of time, a relatively short amount of time. You know, can't have everyone calling in for a 45-minute conversation necessarily. But if you want to call in, Dark Tower Palaver, all one word on Skype. The next thing we've got here is an interesting one. The historic Stanley Hotel is selling for $475 million. And then the headline says ghosts included in the deal. This is from Renee Jean from Cowboy State Daily from December 19th, 2023. The historic and iconic Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado is being sold to a nonprofit organization that is based out of Tucson, Arizona. The nonprofit will be tasked with building out 58 more rooms as well as a new film center. Their mission will be to operate the hotel in perpetuity as a cultural resource. I want to pause here because I do believe that the whole film center thing was actually being worked on with the previous owners, because we covered it on this show, because there was that early this year or late last year, there was that auction where they were doing an auction, and there was the person that won the auction for the Jack Torrance axe from the Shining movie. And then it was a couple episodes later, we ended up finding out that the person that won that auction actually donated it to the film center at the Estes Park, at the Stanley in Estes Park, to be part of this film thing. So they're basically building out a thing that's going to have, like, you know, like not only like stuff for like, but it's going to be stuff for making films. Like there'll be like studios, there'll be a bunch of stuff like that. I think there's going to be a screening thing. So there's a lot of cool stuff that they're doing. So the hotel is being purchased for $475 million from the current caretaker, John Cullen. I really wish that was John Cullum. I really do. I had to do a double take when I was typing up the article recap here. But it is very, very close. It is a couple letters off. But John Cullen is the current caretaker. And he owns Grand Heritage Hotel Group, which is the company that he owns that then owns I almost said the Overlook, the Stanley. The hotel was cast in the spotlight after King was inspired to write the novel The Shining after staying in the hotel late in the season. So I have a quote here. Quote, the Stanley Film Center will cater to a wide audience, including thousands of genre IM fans, industry leaders, aspiring artists, students from around the world. The Stanley Film Center will also cater to a broad demographic, offering family-friendly activities and exhibits through the afternoon and late-night blood and gore for older, more mature audiences that run late into the night. The Film Center is also going to be hosting the 2024 Sundance Film Institute's Directors Lab, so that's kind of cool. The Stanley opened in 1909, built by F.O. Stanley, who became wealthy after selling his photographic plate invention to Kodak. He got something more between $565K and $800K, which in 1909 made him wealthy. Nowadays you can't even buy a house in my neck of the woods for you couldn't even buy a house with that kind of money, but 1909 was obviously a long time ago. So he was told he had 6 months to live. He was diagnosed with something. He moved to Estes Park because he figured if he was going to die, he wanted to die somewhere beautiful. But then as he moved there, he made a remarkable recovery. He built the hotel. The hotel actually is among the first hotels in the West to have electricity, thanks to a hydroelectric plant that Stanley built on the Fall River. It's changed hands a number of times over the years, and the Grand Heritage Company bought it in 1995 for $3.1 million, and they're now selling it for $475 million. So they've done well on their investment. Tour guides tell how King arrived at the hotel as it was already closed for the winter, and he begged them to let him stay, and the only room that still had linens is room 217. Various stories are told about what happened during the stay. One version of the story is a bartender told him it was haunted. Another one says he was wandering the halls and was creeped out. But the most popular story is he had a nightmare about his son being attacked by an old-timey fire hose in the halls of the hotel. Either way, one of those things happened that basically inspired him to write The Shining, and of course, the rest is history. The owners didn't like the idea of the movie being made there. They figured it would scare people away from staying there. But of course, the opposite ended up being true. More people stay there now than before, and a big part of that is the Overlook stuff. And in fact, room 217, last time I hit them up, you usually had to get your reservations for that room somewhere in the realm of a year in advance to it. Of course, they also made Kubrick use the room 237 because that room doesn't exist in most hotels. So 217 does usually exist in a lot of hotels, a lot of decent sized hotels. So they had him change that around. Again, that's a funny thing because honestly, if they would have just used 217, it would make the Stanley even harder to get into and make it even harder to get that room for sure. So kind of cool. I feel like we've talked about the Stanley a couple times over the course of this year. I remember them talking about that film center. I remember them. I know they're they're growing a hedge maze because they got so tired of people asking about a hedge maze that didn't exist, so they decided to grow one. And then I remember covering the fact that dude won that auction for that axe and then donated it to the institute that runs that film thing at the hotel. So that's pretty cool. Next up, so we have one here from this website's called Good E-Reader, but they're basically announcing the winners of the 2023 Goodreads Choice Awards. And this is by Savannah Mandal from Good E-Readers on December 10th, 2023. And the only one, of course, we worry about is the best horror. And the best horror one was won by Stephen King with the book Holly that came out this year. On their little recap, it says, as the revered elder statesman and godfather of the genre. I love that because it befits King for sure. I don't know if he would like being called the elder statesman. Stephen King continues to dominate the horror category. This year he makes the chilling return with Holly, placing the beloved character, a private investigator Holly Gibney, in a harrowing confrontation with a pair of uniquely depraved antagonists. King's latest work seamlessly blends elements of character study, thriller, and cautionary tale that resonates with the eerie nuance of octogenarian academics. In Holly, King once again demonstrates his mastery in weaving a narrative that captivates and terrifies equally. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Congrats to Holly. I know I haven't necessarily covered it, but I know over the course of this year since the book came out, I keep getting things on my email about Holly because it is winning, or it's been topping the charts. Whether it be like Audible doing audiobook, top 10s, or whether it's Amazon doing hard copy, top 10 sellers. And then I don't know if the paperback's out yet, but if the paperback's out, there was also something for that top 10, which is kind of cool. So this next one is just the kind of funny batshit stuff. I had to cover this one. This is the last news one that I've got. Then I got some odds and ends, and then I'll hit the Palaver stuff. Again, so if anyone does want to call on Skype, Dark Tower Palaver is the handle. Give a jingle if you want to be part of the year-end bash, as is tradition. The phone lines are open. So this one is called 10 Wild Theories That Completely Changed Stephen King Movies. Let's see. I just got a message from someone. I had a brief second to read it where it said, can they call now? Yes. Whoever it is, I can't see where your message is at, but if you do want to call, you can call now. Skype is running on a different computer, and it's unfortunately a Chromebook, so it does not. Oh, there's a chat thing. So it's running like the mobile version. Yes. It looks like it's Travis. Yeah, Travis, if you want to call in, you definitely can now. Call anytime for anyone. Sorry, I won't be able to type on that computer. That's a little bit too far removed, but hopefully you're listening. But yeah, I can just pause whatever I'm covering for calls. That's what we've generally done over the years, is taking a pause while anyone calls in. But yeah, so this is by Adrian Tyler from Screen Rant on December 14th, 2023. So this is just 10 wild fan theories, basically. Yes, they don't say that in the thing, but I think these are all fan theories. And this is just a fun kind of shit that I've always loved. So I definitely had to cover this. Let's see. Make sure that's okay. Let me see if I can type on this in case Travis is not hearing me on the okay. But yeah, so this just fun, like 10 wild fan theories, and I always love these kind of things. Of course, they're ridiculous. Some of them are fun, some of them are ridiculous. But yeah, I thought it was kind of fun. So the first one that we have here is Randall Flagg was the evil force in Children of the Corn. So this is, so again, it's that kind of thing. It's just going to mix up different things. Some of it is cross-pollinating King stuff. Other stuff is like King stuff along with other things, including some family-friendly things, which is kind of interesting. So this one, the Adrian says Randall Flagg is a powerful sorcerer and devoted servant of the Outer Dark with the supernatural abilities like necromancy and prophecy, and who has influence over animals and human behavior. Flagg is considered to be the main antagonist in the King's macroverse, so it's not surprising that he is at the front and center of various theories. Among them is one that suggests that Flagg is he who walks behind the rose, the deity that the cult led by Isaac Kroner worships. The theory is based on the fact that Flagg has an affinity for corn in the stand and can take different names and forms throughout his history in the universe. Flagg could have been the evil force that triggered the events of Children of the Corn, adding yet another series of horrible events to his long list of evil deeds. I mean, I can't imagine that. Yeah, like if I have not read Children of the Corn yet, but the whole idea of he who walks behind the rose and the fact that it is corn, that's the first thing I would think myself is Randall Flagg, because of what he does in in the stand is so very, there's a lot of corn elements. A lot of people have dreams of him in the corn and stuff. So Flagg and corn already there's a tie there. But I do agree with Mike, #slander against Flagg, saying he has a long list of evil deeds, because we all know that Flagg is misunderstood. I'm also rocking a Randall Flagg t-shirt from Quartet 19. It's a fun one. It has the smiley face as Randall Flagg. Then it says, let's see, when he grins, birds fall dead off the telephone lines. And there's actually, I don't know if you could see it, but there's like a telephone line and a bird that's like falling down. It's got X's over its eyes. So that's pretty fun. Yeah, and then Mike actually libel against Flagg. Yeah, either way, there's all kinds of slander and misgivings against our beloved Randall Flagg. Next up, number 9. This is a fun one. I've never seen this movie, but of course I've seen Maximum Overdrive. The theory is Maximum Overdrive is a prequel to Pixar's Cars. So I've never seen Cars, but I do know it's sentient living cars. So without even reading the explanation here, I can totally see where this is going. And I do love the spirit of it. So Maximum Overdrive, it says, is based on King's short story Trucks, and it's the only movie that he himself directed. In it, all machines, trucks, vending machines, radios have all become sentient after Earth crosses the tail of a comet, and they go on a worldwide murder spree. The idea that cars come to life and kill people has made way for a theory that suggests Maximum Overdrive is a setup for Pixar's Cars. The theory explains that the machines in Maximum Overdrive eventually succeed in their plans of destroying humanity and take over the world, with Cars showing the result of their actions. Cars gives the more lighthearted version of world domination by machines, but Maximum Overdrive shows the horrible events that led to that eventual world. I love this. This is absolutely incredible. Oh, like I said, I've never seen Cars, but I kind of get the gist of it. And I love it. That's a great. I love that theory. Number 8. This is an interesting one. Let's see. It's Evil reaches Shawshank State Penitentiary. And then Brocky says, and Christine is the prequel to Maximum Overdrive, yeah, indeed. Maybe there was a small fragment of that comet that came and hit the Chrysler factory and set Christine going on her path of destruction and torment. Well, I guess that doesn't make sense in the book, because in the book you have Roland LeBay and that whole thing is going. But in the movie, Carpenter definitely went more that the car itself was just embodied. So this one, it says, another powerful evil force in King's macroverse is It, and this theory suggests that It went beyond Derry and reached Shawshank State Penitentiary. The Shawshank Redemption follows Andy Dufresne and Ellis Redding, two prisoners at Shawshank Penitentiary facing an endless sentence. Red explains that every time a new group of inmates arrives at Shawshank, there's at least one who breaks down hysterically, swearing he's innocent. The theory then explains that this is the result of It's influence, which could have driven the prisoners to commit horrible crimes, just as it did with Henry Bowers and It. If true, this would mean that It's powers is greater than we initially thought, as it went beyond Derry's borders. And this entity also took pleasure in manipulating others and committing crimes. And I'm not even going to necessarily full on accept what they're saying here, but I would actually adapt this and say maybe the people that are breaking down and crying, like in the movie, there's the bigger guy that breaks down crying and stuff. What if those are people that were influenced by Pennywise and they committed their crimes in Derry? They murdered their family or whatever, and then they got sent to Shawshank. Once they get there, they're now outside of the realm of Pennywise, and so suddenly then that's why you have the wake-up call where it's like, holy shit, what's happened? Like, what have I done? I couldn't have done this. I'm innocent type thing. So that's how I would spin it personally. Because I believe that in It, I believe there's at least one time that we have one kid that's murdered by his dad, and it mentions, I believe, that his dad goes to Shawshank Penitentiary for his life sentence. So I do believe it's fully in the realm of possibility for Derry murderers to end up in Shawshank, and I do believe that would add to the whole idea that there's always at least one that breaks down crying that they're innocent, and the first night. So that's kind of a fun one. I really like that one. So number 7, and this one says The Green Mile's John Coffey is the second coming of Christ. It says The Green Mile is a story of Paul Edgecombe, and it played by Tom Hanks. Oops, I just did something to my text here. And death row prison guard who witnesses supernatural events after the arrival of the convict John Coffey, which is played by Michael Clark Duncan. Coffey had healing abilities that he used to cure Paul of his bladder infection, resurrect Dell's pet mouse, and cure Warden Moore's wife of a brain tumor, but his innocence in the crimes he was wrongly accused of couldn't be proven, and he was executed. Given his extraordinary abilities, John Coffey is theorized to have been the second coming of Christ, with the author supporting this by pointing out that they both have JC initials. Both are presented as ordinary people with abilities used for the benefit of others. Both have the desire to die for the pain of others, and both cried out for heaven at the moment of their death. John Coffey was Jesus. His story is even more heartbreaking, as he would have been destined to a tragic death and to feel the pain of others, and couldn't have been saved no matter how hard Paul tried. So I've never heard that full one played out, but I've certainly always seen John Coffey as certainly an allegory for Christ. That's how I've always viewed the character, period. Not necessarily going the next step to say that he's, an actual incarnation of Jesus Christ, but, the initials and just some of the elements they point out here, ever since day one of seeing that movie, I kind of latched onto that idea because it just seemed like, kind of obvious to me, like, not necessarily that I don't think King was stating like he thinks that he is Jesus, but I think there's, elements of Jesus that are being portrayed in John Coffey that, like I said, even as a teenager or whatever I was when the movie came out, I remember thinking that. So next up, the events of The Shining are all in Wendy's head. And then Baraki says he was an angel made incarnate. He's definitely, supernatural for sure. For me, I've always just seen it more as just like, I don't know if parable's the right word, but I've always just felt him as kind of a stand-in that has allusions to Christ. And I think the JC is what always was the thing that got me. And then the healing, and there was some stuff that even as someone that didn't necessarily grow up religious, I knew enough about the Jesus story to know that there were some elements of John Coffey that was kind of crossing over that a little bit. All right, so this one is Number 6 is the events of The Shining are in Wendy's head. The Shining follows the Torrance family, Jack, played by Jack Nicholson, Wendy, played by Shelley Duvall, and Danny, played by Danny Lloyd, who travels to the Overlook Hotel in the Colorado Rockies after Jack takes up a job as an off-season caretaker. After a blizzard traps him in the hotel, the Torrances begin to be haunted by the hotel's supernatural forces, heightened by Danny's shining abilities. A theory suggests that the horrifying events of The Shining are all in Wendy's head as she goes through the psychotic episode due to past traumatic experiences and her fragile mental state. This explains the continuity errors throughout The Shining and other strange events in the different scenes, but also means that Danny's shine isn't real, which takes away the essence of The Shining. And I think this is definitely way more based on the obviously the movie, not the book. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting thought process for sure. Because I think her fragile mental state always rubs me the wrong way. Because that's not how I picture Wendy. I get that's how she's portrayed in the Kubrick movie, but in the book she's kind of a badass. So, all right. Yes, so next up, I got some more Randall Flagg, which is always a wonderful thing. Number 5, Randall Flagg is Carrie White's father. And this one, it says Carrie is the story of Carrie White, a bullied high school girl who was also abused at home by her extremely religious mother, Margaret. A traumatic school incident triggers Carrie's telekinetic powers, which she later uses to exact revenge on those that have done her wrong. Carrie's father isn't present in the books and movies. Or in the books and movies. I guess there's one book, but whatever. And what's known about him is that his name is Ralph White, and he was a construction worker. Ralph shared Margaret's religious beliefs, but one night he got drunk and raped Margaret, resulting in the latter's pregnancy. Shortly after Carrie was born, Ralph was killed in a construction accident, but that may not have been the truth. A theory suggests that Ralph White was one of Randall Flagg's many identities in the King universe. In the novel Carrie, Margaret is mentioned to have battled the black man and vanquished him, driving him from the front door with a broom and him fleeing up the streets with, quote, his cloven feet striking red sparks on the cement. This has been interpreted as Flagg's signature cowboy boots, and Flagg is the embodiment of evil. It's no surprise that Margaret would have seen him as the devil. That would explain why Carrie's powers were so strong and destructive, and why Margaret was so cruel to Carrie, as she was seeing her as the daughter of the devil. So that's an interesting one. That is an interesting one. I do need to reread Carrie. It's been a while, so I kind of forgot some of those elements about her dad. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And then Mike says, Mike says, is Flagg drinking a White Russian? He abides. Indeed. I don't know what he's drinking there. Actually, I don't remember exactly. I remember that scene a vague bit, but I don't remember. Maybe it is a White Russian. If he's echoing the dude, then he does indeed abide. Next up, this is a fun one. I almost wish Peter was here because I think his reaction to this would be fun. David's son had to die to save everyone in the mist. And so this one says, the mist follows the residents of a small town in Maine who, after a severe thunderstorm, are trapped by an unnatural mist concealing monsters. Throughout the chaos, the extremely religious Mrs. Carmody, played by Marcia Gay Harden, gains a small following after surviving the attack of an insects from the mist by praying, and suggests that the human sacrifice must be made to appease the monsters. And she points out David's, which is Thomas Jane's son, Billy. The Mist has one of the darkest and most tragic endings in any horror genre, as David Mercy kills Billy and his 3 friends, intending to later offer himself to the monsters. When he gets out of the car, the military arrives to rescue them, and the mist dissipates. Mrs. Carmody may have actually been right, and Billy had to die in order to save the town from the mist. Honestly, we have talked a lot about the Mist over the last year and a half, and there is a lot of brutal stuff about the Mist. There's the stuff where they wanted to film a scene where part of the army convoy was all of the people from the store, so showing that if they would have just stayed, they would have been okay. We obviously know the lady that left to go get her kids. She ends up surviving. We did see her. As well as just the mechanics of it, to where it's if the mist was just dissipating on its own, at one point, he took a right. If he would have taken a left, he would have found the opening of the mist sooner, and they would have all survived. There's a lot of absolutely terrifying and horrifying and cruel things seen there. But the idea that potentially there was blood atonement needed to dissipate the mist is an absolutely dark, a very dark one indeed. That ending, man. That ending. Next one, it is behind the events of The Shining. Says, as mentioned above, its evil might is not just contained in Derry, and another theory suggests it was responsible for the horrors of The Shining. It may have controlled Jack and driven him to kill Wendy and Danny in the same way it manipulated Henry Bowers in It. And the ghost of Grady, who was also it, like the ghost of Belch that appeared to adult Henry. According to the theory, the reason why it used Jack and Henry to kill others is because it knows how dangerous it can be to go after those who shine, suggesting that the Losers Club also had that ability to some extent. And that's an interesting thought process. Let's see. Don't know why, but my the one for the Skype just turned dark, like not blacked out, but it went to like a dark profile, which is interesting because that did it on its own. I don't know if it's doing it because of the time. Does Microsoft just do it with the sun change? Because it is about sundown now. But either way, it's kind of a cool thought process. I would go one step further on this to say, though, that it doesn't necessarily have to be Pennywise himself. It could easily be another version. I mean, we don't necessarily know that it is a singular thing. We obviously know there's eggs involved at the end, and we all know as Dark Tower fans that it's, a monster from Todash Darkness. There's no telling that maybe there's other monsters that got out of Todash Darkness and maybe landed in Colorado instead of Maine. The next one, and this one as a millennial, this one tickles my fancy quite a bit. Let me get my screen going here. Number 2, Matilda Wormwood is Carrie White. And this is just amazing to me. This cracks me up. Similarities between Ronald Dahl's Matilda Wormwood and Stephen King's Carrie White made way more for a theory than suggests Matilda is a prequel to Carrie. In order to start a new life far away from all their painful memories, Matilda and Miss Honey moved to Maine and changed their names to Carrietta and Margaret White. However, Miss Honey was unable to overcome her trauma and found refuge in religion, becoming a religious fanatic and causing Matilda to become shy and insecure, and her powers to go dormant, and the rest is history. This adds to the tragedy of Carrie White while also giving a dark and heartbreaking twist to Matilda's happy ending. I haven't seen this movie in probably 25 years or more, probably more actually, because how long ago this was, probably closer to 30 years now. But yeah, I grew up watching Matilda a little bit, so that I love the spirit of that one. And again, I love it too because kind of like the Cars one, I love it because it's like kind of a family thing, but then they're twisting it to be like sinister and tied into King, which I always appreciate for sure. And then Brock says they're all Randall Flagg, It, The Overlook, Carrie White, Christine, even Cujo, hashtag RF slander. Hey, I've said multiple times that whenever I'm reading a Stephen King story, if an antagonist shows up, I just assume that they're Randall Flagg until that's proven otherwise. It does. At first, I think it used to be like an initial thing if the person had RF initials, I assumed. But then it got to a point where I'm like, you know what? He uses other names sometimes. It's not always RF. So I just started to get to the point where it's like, someone shows up antagonistic wise. I'm like, okay, cool, this is Flagg. And then down the road, if something is said that disproves that, then it's like, cool, it's not. But my initial assumption is they're all Randall Flagg. And my hashtag would be hashtag Flagg has his reasons. Mike, correction, Tad, if protagonist shows up, it's Randall Flagg. Well, that's why I said antagonist, because an antagonist I don't think actually says that they're evil. I mean, if you have like a movie that's like focused on a criminal, the protagonist or the antagonist would be a cop. Like, antagonist doesn't mean villain. It just means they're against the heroes of the story. And sometimes if you may be cheering for the wrong people, and the quote unquote hero of your story might be a bad person, and the antagonists might be good people. And that's of course usually how it would be for Flagg, I would imagine. And then, of course, we got to round it out with another one with Randall Flagg, because why not? Number 1 is Randall Flagg and It are the same. So Baraki already kind of called a little bit of this out. A theory supported by Stephen King himself, and there's a link to that. I didn't click on it, unfortunately, and so I don't know what they're pulling from King here, but I highly doubt that King actually supports this theory. I think it probably just taking something out of context here. Says that Randall Flagg and It are the same entity, which brings these two characters together. What brings these two characters together are their immense power, evil nature, ability to take any form they desire, and their presence triggering chaos and tragedy. Flag and It have been on Earth for many years and are both are considered the embodiment of evil, so it's possible that they could be the same character. This would mean the biggest tragedies of the Macroverse have all been caused by one single entity, and its power and evil might be severely underestimated, as it can reach any corner of the mess with whoever it pleases. So, I mean, I don't know if I support this one, because I think for me, I've always kind of, I don't know about you guys, but I've always kind of viewed Pennywise as kind of I don't want to say this as like a bad thing, but I've always just viewed it as like, as like a lower creature. Like it's like a beast that just like eats. Like I guess like, of course you could say like, I don't know. There's then arguments to be made about, if there was an apex predator above humanity that ate us, we would probably view them as evil, even though they're just animals doing what they do. But I've always viewed Pennywise that way. I know there's like a cunning to him and stuff, and there's like things that he, does to people that's pretty terrible. But I've always just viewed, whereas like Flag, like I've always viewed as like a, kind of the higher, mentality. Like he's not just like the Stand is a one small fraction of him. And then you see him in the Dark Tower, and he's crossing to different worlds. He's in like the Keystone world. He's in like the main Dark Tower world. Like I just feel like he kind of pops in and out everywhere. I feel like he's playing like a higher game. He's kind of playing chess, whereas Pennywise is just a very intelligent hunter that just basically landed in a spot and just decided to live there and feast every 20 something years. 20, what is it, everyone says 27, but in the book there's actually a little bit of a variance. I think it's like 25 to 27. There's like a small window, because sometimes it's a shorter gap between them or whatever, but I feel like in the last couple of years we've all just settled on 27, and it makes it sound like it's always like absolute clockwork. But I believe in the novel, if I remember right, there's a little bit of variance. There's a couple year variance that could happen, so it's not always exactly 27 years. Mike says it is a sophisticated spider from another. It is a sophisticated spider from another dimension? ? Yeah, and that's, I mean, and certainly, and I'm not trying to say that like it can't think or it's not whatever. Like I just think that the way it acts, like I don't think it has like larger goals and aspirations. I think for it's all about survival. It's all about eat, create panic, fear, chaos, death, and then eat off of it, and that's it. It just like hibernates, eats. That just feels very lower order animal to me, even though it obviously has great intelligence and great abilities for sure. But whereas Flag, like I feel like he's a chess player. He's doing crazy stuff, like strategically and stuff. So and then Barack says Pennywise is an alien, but also an eldritch horror. And I think he's like, and I've always thought that it is probably like, a monster from Toe Darkness for sure. So that's probably where it comes from. But I think that like, Toe Monster we see a few different potential versions of Toe monsters throughout the Dark Tower series. And I do think they tend to be a little bit more bestial and stuff, a little bit more, animalistic. I don't think that you necessarily get Toe monsters that are, the same as Flag. So I don't necessarily like the idea that they're the same. I do think that they're definitely very similar for sure. But the same, I feel like there's some differences between the two that I find a lot more. And it's interesting. I think right, like the fact that King's not always writing the exact same thing, like the fact that Flag and Pennywise, there is such a distinction between the two. I think I really appreciate. Let's see. Okay, just making sure I'm not missing anything on the call side. I think it's set up to give me an alert. Or yeah, because we did hear an alert when he sent the chat. I just don't know if he got busy on something. So let's jump on over to the odds and ends. Let's see. So the first one here is an interesting one. Someone made a Hallmark version of The Shining. It's basically a Hallmark Christmas movie, and I have it up on the screen here. I'll have it in the show notes if you're listening on the episode. If you're listening to the episode on the podcast feed, and they basically created a Hallmark movie, Christmas movie poster called Brightly Shining, and you've got Jack Nicholson smiling with hugging a typewriter, and Wendy. It looks absolutely perfect. I've never seen a Hallmark Christmas movie or Hallmark movie at all. But I kind of know what they look like. I've sold movies in over the course of my life, and I kind of know what they look like, and this looks perfect. So huge shout out and credit to Kern Creative Design, which is whose Instagram it came from. But it's absolutely incredible. Let's see. Barack says, "Oh my God, I laughed so hard I startled the dog." I think it's the dog. Yeah. Sorry, that stupid heart thing is back. So I'm like, a few of your guys' words are a little bit blocked when you're on the bottom part of the chat. But I do think startled the dog. That's awesome. But yeah, this cracked me up too. Of course, we're a little bit past Christmas now, but still, it's a wonderful thing. I'm glad to see someone made this, and it makes me want to see the movie now. Or I want to see someone like try to edit The Shining together to actually make like a trailer for like it's a Hallmark movie. Get like the sappy music and see if you can piece together like a 2-minute trailer for this brightly shining. I wonder if that's even possible. Oh, that's wonderful. Next up, Scream Factory. They are coming out with a collector's edition of the movie Thinner. It's coming on January 23rd. Check the Scream Factory's website if you want to pre-order it or whatever. That's pretty cool. They're doing a lot of really cool things. They come out with some really good special editions. So that should be interesting. I've never actually seen Thinner. I just read that this year for the first time. Next up, this one, this article called it Chilling but Forgotten King TV Gem is now free to stream, and it's called Sometimes They Come Back. So right now it is currently free on Redbox, Roku channel, or Tubi. And the synopsis here is, quote, high school teacher Jim Norman, played by Tim Matheson, reluctantly returns to his hometown with his wife, Brooke Adams, to pursue a job. Jim is haunted by a childhood memory of his brother being murdered by a group of teenagers who were then struck by a train before they could kill him too. To Jim's horror, he finds that the teenagers have returned to town as they appeared before they died and are transferring into his class. When his students start dying off, Jim becomes the prime suspect. That does sound very sinister, and the person that wrote the article was just talking about seeing it back in the day, but then like it's been kind of unavailable, kind of like Rose Red we covered on the last episode that Rose Red's now streaming. That one's not really been available anywhere for a long time. This felt the same way. The person said they started to think this was actually a fever dream they had. It was never actually a real thing, but then this got announced and they realized, oh shit, it did exist, and it's finally coming out. So if you have the apps for Redbox, Roku, or Tubi, you can go watch this for free right now. And then I guess I forgot to do a slide for this one, but the last one I have is Nikolai Arcel that directed the movie. His latest film, The Promised Land, is shortlisted for an International Academy Award. As it's shortlisted to be one of the nominees for International Academy Awards. Apparently, different countries can nominate a movie from their country up to the Academy Award, and the Academy Award figures out which ones make it. And Denmark, I think, is his country, nominated this movie called The Promised Land. So there's a potential that Nikolai Arcel could be getting his second Oscar nomination. I do believe the other one that he did, I'm forgetting the name of it now. I actually bought it back when he got hired on as a Dark Tower director, but I have still yet to watch it. But I think that that movie actually won an Oscar. So there's a good chance that his other movie here could be an Oscar winner potentially. So. I had no Uncle Stevie recommends. I couldn't find anything really on his Twitter. There's plenty of stuff he's saying on there, but he's talking a lot about current events. He was shitting on Christmas music and Christmas movies as well. Seemed like there was a lot of stuff like that. Maybe it's just that he's like a lot of us, where there just isn't as much stuff to watch in the last little bit because of the writer strikes and stuff. Maybe that's the reason. And it is also the holiday season. Generally speaking, even like network TV in the old days would always take breaks this time of year and not show their shows because nobody's watching TV this time of year. So maybe nobody's really streaming or airing new stuff right now. So that could be the reason why there's no recommends from Uncle Stevie. All right. Then next up, I got the Palaver section. So I don't have a ton, but I actually wanted to cover, I did read, I decided to dive into The Running Man. We covered last episode. The Edgar Wright gave a quote where he did indeed confirm that the Running Man is still being adapted by him. We were starting to kind of wonder. I actually remember a couple episodes before that questioning whether the Running Man was still happening, because it feels like we had heard that announcement. We'd heard nothing since, and I was starting to get kind of worried. Edgar Wright's obviously a very sought-after director. I was kind of worried that we may lose him as a director from this project. Like, he was involved originally at one point to sign on it to do like the Ant-Man movie, and then he left that project and stuff. So I was kind of worried about that. But then he came out with this quote we covered last round table where he basically said like, "Yep, still doing it, still want to do it," and kind of talked about it. So I decided to read it. I finished up my Dark Tower reread. I read a couple nonfiction things and decided to dive in. And I decided, you know what, the best place to start is I was going to hit some Bachman ones. So read The Running Man, and then I am now currently reading Roadwork. Okay, so adaptation wise, and Mike Mike says it'd be interesting to see how he ends it. He can't go with the book ending, and honestly, I had heard that a number of times, so I already kind of knew how it would end, which is fine. Again, I don't freak out about spoilers like some people. I actually disagree. I think that if you actually play the movie out the way that the story plays out, yes, audiences are going to have a visceral reaction if he does indeed run a plane into a tower. But if you play up the game commission, and I'm blanking on the one dude's name that's really heavy involved in getting him into this game. If you play them up as fucking evil and dastardly as they are, and if you really lean into the I don't know, dystopian element of the game commission, I think you could get away with it. Yes, it's something you got to be careful with, because we all have visceral reactions to certain images because of 9/11. But after reading it, I was like, if he actually played this out right, I think there would be some elements. Of course, there's always gonna be some people who complain, but I think your majority of your audience would actually accept it happening if you did it right, because they would fucking loathe the game commission so much. And then it says studios won't let him. I don't know. I mean, there is also part of me that thinks that, you know, they did all those 9/11 movies like 5 years after, and I know those are different because you're actually covering 9/11, but it's just I don't know. And with Edgar Wright being Edgar Wright, I wonder if he has a little bit more cachet to basically do what he wants to do. You're right though. That would probably be maybe the bigger challenge is maybe the studios, but I don't know, man. I think if you handled it right, and I do think Edgar Wright could maybe be the guy to do it right, versus like if you had kind of one of these, and I don't like to say this, but there's some people we get signed on to these King projects that, they're just like up and comers, or they're kind of middle of the road dudes that, they'll come out and they'll maybe get out a functioning adaptation, but they're never going to knock it out of the park. They're never going to give you a 9 out of 10 movie. They're going to give you a 6 or 7 out of 10. It's 7 at the best. With Edgar Wright being such a special filmmaker, in my opinion, I kind of wonder if, this is one of the ones I'm most excited for, mostly because of that, because he's just such a good filmmaker that I don't feel like we're going to get some mediocre, middle of the road, or bad. I mean, that's the other side of it too, right? How many bad adaptations have we seen in the last number of years? I just don't think that Edgar's going to give us that. But yeah, I think that's definitely an interesting thing. The whole ending, because that was one of the things I wanted to mention after reading it, because I remember having a eureka moment where like, some revelation happens about the gaming commission, and it's just like, holy fuck, dude, these people are fucking vile. Like, they are absolutely terrible. And it hit me. I would think I was driving around doing errands or something, and a moment happened, and I just thought to myself, I'm like, you know what, if they leaned into this and really made these people bad, like, and maybe convey it in a way to where there's like, because I do it where it's like at night, the only people that are there are those top end evil motherfuckers. There's no like innocent dudes like fucking, that are data entry or anything. I wonder if you can maybe get away with it. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, for sure. I mean, of course, you could always go at it a different way. I mean, it could end up being like just bombing the building, or just, I don't know. I feel like there's no matter what you do, you're going to run into some elements of, I mean, even if you got a gun and went into there and just killed all those gaming commission people, you're going to have people that are going to kind of squirm a little bit. I don't think there's any good way to do it that's not going to be troubling a little bit in one way or another. But I loved it. The one thing I actually thought about too, And I actually saw a news article that it wasn't anything. It was mostly just reviewing shit we'd already covered. But the one thing it mentioned was the same thing that hit me was if they need to fast track this fucking movie because the book takes place in 2025. So if they actually get this thing moving quickly, they could actually release it in 2025. Which would be the exact year that the story takes place. I remember thinking that when they said it was 2025, I was like, dude, fuck, they need to fast track this shit. They need to make sure the script is written, and they need to start filming before summer. I mean, they need to film sometime in the first half of the year, and then there's a chance they can maybe get it out. Or I guess you can maybe go a little bit into the summer as well if you needed to film, and then if you wanted to release it late in 2025. But I do think they should really try for that because I think that'd be really, really cool if they were able to get it out there in the year. Baraki says, which story I was away for? The Running Man. I just read The Running Man for the first time. I was just, one of the things that really hit me was like, we're at a spot that if they fast track Edgar Wright's adaptation, they could actually get it to release in 2025, which would be really fucking cool to have it take place the same year that it's coming out with this new movie. And I haven't seen the Arnold movie since probably the 90s at some point. Last time I watched it as a kid, I used to love renting any kind of Arnold movie. And I've certainly seen The Running Man. There's a couple things, but I do know, and I remember enough about it to know that it's kind of what Edgar Wright said. The Running Man that they've done, the previous film they did of The Running Man is nothing like the book. The book is still unadapted pretty much. And yes, Baraki said the book is so much better, and I totally agree. Honestly, that's probably one of the reasons I haven't read The Running Man up to this point, because I think I've always skipped over it because like what I remember is it was a very mediocre Arnold movie. It was kind of funny and silly or whatever, and I just kind of expected that story. So, having the Edgar Wright news come out and stuff, and then that article we covered in the last episode, it had it fresh in my mind where Edgar was saying, like, that book that I read as a younger person has still never been adapted, and I want to see it adapted. So, that kind of gave me a Jones for it. And then after reading that, I was just like, you know what, fuck this, I'm going to keep on the Bachman realm. So now I'm doing Road Work. I'm in the middle of reading that right now. So, and then I'm thinking I might go into Desperation and The Regulators, because that's the post Bachman Revelation Bachman book. Was the one of them is a Stephen King book, one of them is a Bachman book, but that was after Bachman was exposed as his pen name. I'm trying to remember. I think Rage is out of print, of course. I do think I may or may not have a PDF sitting around on my computer somewhere. I might have to read that at some point. Then I can say I believe at that point I have all the Bachman books checked off. The Long Walk, Road Work I'm doing now, The Running Man, Thinner, I've read Thinner, and then The Regulators I have not. So yeah, I've got Blaze highlighted too in 2007. Was that considered a Bachman book? When I did our extended quartet count, I bold-faced all the ones that were Bachman books. I did not know that Blaze book, Bachman? Unless that was a mistake on my end. Blaze by Richard Bachman. Indeed. Okay. That's interesting. I guess so. There's a few more I still have, but yeah, I've just been kind of in the mood for, after the Running Man was so good, I decided to hit up Road Work. Oh, look at that. Hello? I don't think I hit accept. There we go. Hello? Hello? Let's see. Travis, you there? Don't know. If you can hear me, I cannot hear you. I can hear stuff, but you're not responding. So I don't know.
Hello?
Travis?
Uh-oh.
All right. I can hear you, and I don't know if you can hear me though. And then Baraki, that book says that book is amazing. Something written by Philip K. Dick. And which one are you talking? Are you talking The Running Man now or Road Work? And now I've been talking about both. Probably Philip K. Dick was a little bit more dystopian stuff, so I'm guessing that's The Running Man you're talking about. Yeah, Travis in the chat. I don't know what happened. Yeah, I don't know. I could hear you. I don't know if you could you not hear me? I'm guessing. And then Brock says either. But The Running Man. Yeah, I really enjoyed The Running Man. I'm kind of glad. That's interesting. Travis saying he couldn't hear me. Let's see. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think if anything would be hooked up wrong. Let's see. So that one is going into there as the mic. So I wonder if that's supposed to be. Sorry, I don't plug in the live stream stuff. I don't keep it plugged in all the time, just because I want to minimize wires on my desk. I think maybe I had it plugged in the wrong spot. So Travis, if you want to try again, maybe I had it plugged into the wrong spot. So you can try it again if you want. But yeah, I agree, Baraki. I really love the Running Man. I have actually never read anything Philip K. Dick. I watched the. All right, let's see if this works. Hello, Travis.
There we go.
Okay, I had it plugged in wrong. It looks like I have like a little bit of dust on the soundboard, and I had two holes that I had like dust removed from a little bit. So I'm like, it's one of the two, and I picked the wrong one to start. So,
well, listeners haven't heard this in a while, so I'm going to go ahead and say it because of that faux pas. Hashtag Tad is terrible.
Yeah, that's true. It's been a couple episodes now without that. I thought that slanderous hashtag might be dead by this point.
Oh, it's risen from the grave. Man, it's good to talk to you, bud. I think we spoke years ago on one of these. I called in much like I'm doing now while driving, but I'm hands free, so no worries there.
Yeah.
But man, what a great year that y'all have been having. Well, this is the last episode of the year, I suppose.
Yeah.
But dude, phenomenal year. And I've been listening to you guys since like 2016 or something. So it's just been cool to watch y'all grow and like all the news and stuff that happens.
Yeah.
And see y'all's reaction to it, dude. It's been a blast.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. Thank you. It's always good to. I never want it to sound like I'm like fishing for compliments, but it's always nice to hear. And we do get some people will like comment on it and stuff, and I always appreciate that. Just because it's so one sided with podcasting, sometimes it's hard to know if you're doing good. And again, I'm not saying that trying to fish for compliments, but it is always nice to hear. So I do appreciate that. And I know Mike's always is when I see comments on the videos and stuff as well. So I do appreciate it from everyone.
Yeah, I feel bad, man. I kind of go silent on y'all, but I still listen. I download the episodes because I can't always tune in live like this, which is I love doing this more so because y'all interact with the comment section, and that right there is a big deal in my opinion. And yeah, congrats on 8 years, dude. That's a long time. Dude.
Yeah.
You're closing in on a decade, huh?
I know. It's crazy. I remember when we hit our 8-year mark, I was like, that's not real. Like I had to like do the math in my head because I'm like, there's no way it's 8 years. Like this feels like maybe 4 years. Like I don't know, but it's true. It was October, very beginning of October 2015 when we started. So it's a long time now, and in internet years too. That's like dog years. So it's been a long time.
I had something that I wanted to ask you about, or kind of, I guess, talk about, really.
Yeah.
I finally to Revival on audiobook, and what's the actor's name who reads it?
Oh, God, who did read Revival? I just listened to that one this year for the first time. Let's see, somebody in the chat.
Yeah.
Someone in the chat might beat me to it, because I'm going to have to pull up my thing and see if I can find it here. It wasn't super recent, but yeah, I'll see if I can find it. What were you saying?
Well, that guy number one does a fantastic job reading the book, and my God,
David Morse.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, he did do an incredible job. I mean, I had heard so much about that book over the years. This year I read it for the first time, and it blew me away. I thought it was such an incredible book.
Oh, dude. When I knew that Big Daddy Flanagan was talking about maybe, adapting it, I'm like, okay, I need because I'm a Stephen King fan, and I've read a lot of his work, but most of his work that I've read is like pre-90s and pre-90s. I'm not up to date with all his, turn of the century stuff.
Okay.
But Revival I did sink my teeth into, and it's what I love about that story is how it's you gotta wait for the horror. It's like a slow burn for sure when it comes to the horror, but when the horror comes, good God.
Yeah, it's like absolutely like dialed to 11 for sure.
Cosmic as fuck.
Yeah, indeed. And I actually just Googled David Morse because the name wasn't really ringing a bell. And of course I knew who this guy is. He was the tall guard in Green Mile. I'll always know him as the Major from The Rock. He was Ed Harris's second in command. He's kind of one of those that guy actors. I never remember his name. But yeah, I didn't realize it was him that narrated it. I probably the whole time we were listening to it, I was probably like, God, this guy's so familiar. I don't know who he is though.
They need to get Mr. Krabs to narrate one of the Stephen King books.
Who's
Not
that?
actually, to Clancy Brown.
Oh,
Wait,
Clancy.
what's his name?
Yeah, Clancy Brown. Yeah,
Is that it?
Yeah, of the guard from Shawshank Redemption. He's been in a shitload of stuff. Starship Troopers, John Wick 4, Highlander. Yeah.
Yeah, he does the voice of Mr. Krabs on SpongeBob.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they need to get boy.
Yeah, he'd be a good narrator. He's got a really distinct voice. I think he'd be good as an audiobook guy.
He would actually be if I had to cast another. You ever watch the Phantasm movies?
Yeah, not in years, but yes.
If they would ever make a part 6, they need to cast him as the tall man because R.I.P. Angus Scrimm.
Yeah, indeed. I actually just looked him up as an audiobook narrator. He has actually narrated 2 things, and they are both George R.R. Martin books. Aces Abroad and Wild Card 6 are both narrated by Clancy Brown. Well, at least in part. It looks like there's actually multiple narrators. So maybe those are like ones where they have different voices for different characters or something. But yeah, so he's at least done an element of it. So yeah, let's get him in and do a Stephen King book maybe. That'd be really cool. We still need what is it? Night Shift. That still is not on Audible. It doesn't really exist. Is it Night Shift? The most. Yeah, get him to do one of the short stories in Night Shift. I think maybe because that's probably my most sought after Audible get, because there's a couple things that aren't Stephen King wise that aren't on Audible. I know Cycle the Werewolf's not on there. There's a couple small things. But Night Shift is huge because, like, short story wise, there's no short story collection that has more adapted stories out of it than that one. I think there's like of the 20 of them, there's like 11 of them have been adapted. So it's like a powerhouse one. At some point, maybe I just need to like pick it up and read it. But I love audiobook for sure, short stories, because I love the different actors. They're all doing different things vocally. They're awesome productions usually.
Tad, you've got a great podcast voice. You should narrate Cycle of the Werewolf.
Well, that's interesting to hear, because I think I'm like every human being on the planet. I hate my voice, generally speaking. So back when we didn't do it live, when I used to edit and we try to like, edit things out, it was always painful to me to have to sit there after recording a 2-hour show to go and listen to the 2-hour show and edit things here and there. It was always painful because I hate my voice personally. But I think that's a universal human thing, I think, for the most part.
For the most part, probably. But before, because I don't want to take up too much time, I just enjoy being able to call in and say hi. I wanted to ask if you had any big plans for the podcast next year, anything that you're looking forward to specifically, and if you planned on saying all that at the end, then I'll wait patiently until the end for that.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer. I can answer some of that. I have the only thing I really haven't that I have on my list to talk about is I want to talk about the dates for what we're gonna do for episodes, because we always got to figure out. There's a for the every other week thing. There's always like one week we'd pick that would like clear us of all the major holidays and stuff. So I always have to figure out what that is and what it or whatever. So I will talk about that, but just kind of to talk about what you're saying there. Every year I feel like I talk about there's things like Bev Vincent, some of these like people that are like, awesome guests that I've been wanting to, bring on for years. I'm blanking all of a sudden. Bev Vincent, Robin Firth. I know like there's a couple of people like that I've always wanted to have on the show. But it's been my fault to never really pursue them. I do think that, I would love to maybe reach out to them and see if they're available. Ultimately my big hope is that we get some news about Flanagan's Dark Tower. That's the thing that probably like excites me the most. But I definitely want to kind of see what the year I guess I want to try to figure out what to do, because it's definitely going to be interesting with being just me. I am probably going to hit up like like on Patreon we have a certain level. I want to go and replay out, because like the people at a certain level get a guest host on a show. I'm probably going to cycle through those people again. A few of them haven't done it in a while, which is again my fault. I'm really bad sometimes at just planning shit out. So life's so busy that sometimes squeezing the podcast stuff in and getting all the prep done wears me out to the point where I don't think ahead enough. We have also dropped the comic books. We haven't covered those in a couple years. I want to do those still. But yeah, I want to try to maybe do some things to mix it up a bit to where maybe it isn't just me entirely alone the whole year. Not that would be every episode by any means, but things like having some interviews with some people would be really cool. But and then Mike's calling out in the chat. That's another thing I have to mention is the March Insanity. We're going to make that fan voting March Insanity. We're going to do that annually now. We did one in 2019, and then we kind of I don't know, I just stopped doing it, and then I started it in 2022 and then 2023. So we are going to start it or do it again in 2024 and keep it going annually. So I'll have an announcement on that here in a bit, but I don't know. Yeah, definitely some ideas. I've not reached out to anyone yet, so I can't say for sure that who I will or won't have on. But I've definitely had the thought to maybe try to break things up a tiny bit by maybe having some guests on, that kind of stuff. So, and then Brocky asking about Peter update. I mean, I think Peter's doing good with the new job, but it's still pretty insane. I think he's pretty much, the last thing I had heard from him, like he's pretty much working so much because they're shorthanded that it's like pretty much wake up, relax for a second, get ready, go to work until get home, eat, and then go to bed type thing. There's not much room in his life for much right now. So he's getting after it. So, but
I know that grind.
Yeah.
But thanks for answering my question. And yeah, dude, that's dope. Also, reach for the skies. Try to contact Cy King. You never know. You never know until you ask.
Yeah, I'm now at least in the realm where I at least believe that King knows what podcasts are. He did that the Strawberry Springs thing a couple years ago, but then he did a guest host on the Losers Club. And in fact, while I was looking through King Recommends, he's actually tweeted about the Losers Club a few times. Like, I don't know how he found them. But yeah, there's always a thought in my mind where it's like, man, does King just like go and listen to like Stephen King podcasts? And if he does he ever listen to ours? Like, which makes me nervous as hell. But yeah, I mean, I've never not swung for the fences. I don't think I've ever reached out to King because I don't know how I would do that. But I know the big one that I swung for the fences for at one point that almost happened. We were like damn near there was I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden. The guy that produced the Dark Tower movie, right now he's doing a lot of the producing on a lot of the Star Trek shows and stuff, which is insane. That like he was like actively chatting with me about coming on the show at one point to leading up into the movie. But it's funny because I was like watching Picard, and it's like he was the main producer on Picard. And I'm just like, holy shit. And he's done like Will Smith movies. Like, he's a big time fucking producer. And like, to think that I came so close, but the timing didn't work out. He had some, like, he's a Hollywood guy, right? It's hard to pin those guys down, but that's,
yeah. They can be tricky to talk to, like the bigger, higher up people, because even if you get them on, they usually have a handler who's there as well.
Yeah.
Listening in, which you wouldn't have to worry about anything though. I mean, y'all are cool ass guys, eh?
Yeah.
But no shenanigans. Yeah.
Yeah.
But dude,
I mean,
go ahead.
At this point, I mean, King would always be the white whale for sure. But in my mind, I wonder about Flanagan. I think that would be a big one. In my mind, like if I was able to convince him to come on, I would even just love to like, hey, we're not even going to talk about your series at all unless you wanted to. But like, just come on as a Dark Tower fan and let me interview you, and your Dark Tower fandom. Like, that's almost what interests me, like, and even to the point with like Bev Vincent or Robin Firth, like in my mind, like, yes, there's some cool stuff where it's like, let me hear about like the projects they've done, but also that's like, just tell me about being a Dark Tower fan. Like, what does this look like for you? Kind of the same things we ask listeners, some of those same questions, but yeah, no, there's definitely always a hope. And I'm not one to just like not try something, but I definitely want to be tactful. I see some people online where they'll just like tweet at someone like Stephen King that has 100 million viewers on Twitter, and it's like, dude, he probably doesn't even see most of these tweets at him. But no, it'd be cool to get some guests on for sure.
He probably has a team or like some kind of I don't know what you call it necessarily, but they usually have, again, it's like handlers, management, whatever. Yeah. You might be able to find it on his official website. Contact Stephen King. Who knows?
Yeah.
That boy, he's old though, so he
yeah,
he goes to bed early.
He's done some he's done, like, he did the Losers Club, which is really cool. Again, that was encouraging to me because it at least showed me, like, cool, he didn't just like license a podcast out for like Strawberry Springs or whatever that one was called, but he actually was like, and he talked about like, oh, I'd listen to a couple of your guys' shows and stuff, and it was just like, okay, so he actually listens to podcasts and he knows what they are, because he's an older guy. I'm not going to take it for granted that everyone on the planet knows what a podcast is. So I remember having to talk to my grandparents at one point, and I was like, what are you doing? I'm like, it's a radio show on the internet. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, that's the only way I could explain it to someone in their 80s.
Yeah. And that makes sense, dude. That's a great analogy, man.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk horror with you one day, by the way, just throwing that out there. Check your emails.
Oh, yeah. No, I have seen your email. I just haven't responded because I just don't know what everything looks like yet. But I have seen it for sure. So.
Okay. I'm just throwing that out there, bud.
Yeah.
But regardless, man, congrats again on 8 fucking years. Amazing. Looking forward to next year, seeing where the show goes, and I'll be a constant listener.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for the support, and thanks for calling in.
Yes, sir. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too. All right, bye. And then let's see. Brocky said, anything new on the Dark Tower TV show? Nothing yet. I think the strikes have kind of kept everything. The strikes are resolved now, but we don't know anything outside of that. And also honestly, let's see. Let's see. Hello, is this Mike? Oh, now maybe. Hello, Mike? Hello?
Oh, now maybe. Hello? Mike?
Yeah, there we go. I can hear you now.
I can hear you. Yeah. Sorry, I had both on.
Oh, okay. I just assumed it was you because it was a Randall Flagg picture.
Yeah, it was me.
Awesome. Oh, yeah, you want to mute the computer with me on it, I guess? There we go.
You good?
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, fantastic.
Awesome. How's it going, Mike?
I'm doing great. I just wanted to agree with Travis and say that I absolutely love the work you're doing. When I can't join live, I love the fact that I have one day a week where I can listen to you that helps me get through work.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate it. And again, thank you. I do see your comments where you say good show and stuff. I always appreciate that stuff because, again, definitely not fishing for compliments, but it's always nice because sometimes you're just talking into a computer screen, and it's always. At least me, I get very self-critical on anything in life. It's just one of my sins, and so every once in a while I'm like, God, man, I just don't know if I'm doing a good job or not. And so it's always good to hear from you guys. If you're enjoying what you're doing, and now especially just being on my own, that's definitely a whole new thing where suddenly the comforts of the last 8 years are different than they used to be. It's not the same. It's not me with my best friend anymore. Now it's just going to be me. So that's interesting.
Yeah, you're definitely nailing it. You're still nailing it. I absolutely love every episode.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Thank you so much. And it's good to have you here in the chat, too. I love, and Brocky as well. It's been here. Travis has been in here. You're in here a lot. Haven't seen Carol. It is the holiday season, but I love you regulars. It's always awesome. I do think that ever since day one, originally for the first couple of years, it was emails, but I told Peter from day one, it's like, I want the listeners to be a big part of the show. And now with the live streams, it's just incredible to have the real-time interaction. And then now with these kind of call-in things are always fun too. But it's definitely I hugely appreciate you guys because you add a whole layer to the show that is wonderful.
Yeah. So since you're kind of Peterless for maybe a long term, you should start a new hashtag. I think maybe hashtag Peter was wrong.
That would be the right thing to do is create a hashtag now that he is not here to fight back.
Yes.
We'll have to think about something on that for sure.
Or maybe when Flanagan's show comes out and Flag appears to be the hero, you can be hashtag told you so.
Yeah. Oh, indeed. Indeed. And that's, I think, probably like towards Travis' question too about like excitement wise. Excitement for me is just, I want some news on the Dark Tower show. I'm like so jonesing for every time even like there was the retrospective time when Peter kind of told me his schedule was changing. He wouldn't be able to do it anymore. There was certainly a time where I thought to myself, like, what, do I want to keep doing this? Do I want to do it on my own? And where the yes came from is like just the idea of like, the Flanagan series on the horizon, and the book clubs are obviously are wonderful as well. We're getting right to the best parts of the stuff of the book clubs. I'm just like, I could not see myself hanging it up now. Even just doing it on my own would be better than not doing it. So the excitement though for the Flanagan series is off the charts. I was hoping we'd maybe get something here at the tail end of the year. That this is when we heard the cancellation for the Amazon was in December, and then I think Flanagan's announced it was in January that he got the rights to it. So maybe we'll hear something next month. I'm hoping.
Yeah, I just hope he just sends a tweet or whatever it's called now that just has a date, like say March 20 of 2024 or whatever.
Yeah.
It just puts 5 periods after that and lets everybody guess.
yeah, do that. And then like, because then from there, yeah, we'd have that, and then the next stuff. It's like, I think to myself what 2016 looked like here on the show. Going through things like casting announcements and all the stuff like that kind of stuff just excites me to all hell. And then eventually getting to the show happening, like I can't wait to do like full episodes. Like I've already assumed that I'll keep the normal cadence of the show, but then I'll probably add just secondary episodes just to talk about each episode one at a time and break them down. Like, I don't want to like kill book clubs or anything, and I don't want to wait for like once a month for I'll do like a weekly show like right after the episodes air and talk about the episodes in depth and stuff. So
yeah, and to go back to your earlier point, I cannot imagine you stopping the book clubs. Oh my gosh, it'd be like people who had to live through the delay in between books.
yeah. That was that, and again that was the Flanagan stuff, and then even if Flanagan stuff didn't pan out, like God forbid, but if it did, like the book club stuff is still so fun that like I couldn't imagine not finishing that out.
Yeah, that would be torture.
Yeah,
I know I say it often, but I truly mean it. Great show. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. That's awesome. I'm glad. Yeah, and it's cool because there's so many new like King podcasts and stuff. Like when we started this, I think there was only one other Dark Tower show, and they weren't really posting regular episodes. They were going months and months and months at a time without any episodes. So it felt like we were kind of stepping into like a no man's land, but now it just feels like it's way more full and rich, and I love it. And it's just it's cool to see. And yeah, I love to be part of it for sure. It's cool, and having you guys here geeking out about Dark Tower is a wonder, and King in general is a wonderful thing, because I don't know, so few of us have anyone to talk about when it comes to Dark Tower outside of this.
Yeah, agreed. I'll let you get back to it. Again, thank you so much. Keep up the great work, and see you in 2024.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Mike.
Bye.
All right, see ya. All right. Yeah. So Brocky, nothing new on the show. But with the strikes, I don't assume we would have heard anything. I wonder what January will look like though, because now the strikes are done, and Flanagan did have that thing that we covered that made him sound like he kind of had some stuff in the works to where it felt like once the strikes were over, it would be a short time. But I think the main thing to remember too is the holiday season. I pretty much heard film people say that once Thanksgiving hits, you pretty much don't expect anything to happen in Hollywood until like February, because you got Thanksgiving, then you got Christmas, Hanukkah, Ramadan, all the holiday stuff. Then you got New Year's, and then shortly into January you've got Sundance, and then you've got and then right after Sundance. So they're basically like from the whatever it is, the end of November to the end of January, there's just like these top execs in Hollywood, they don't even go to the office. Like they're out on vacation, or they're out at film festivals or whatever. So there's just not a lot that's going to get done at this time. So I think that once it may even be later into like that February period, that whatever Flanagan teased us with maybe will come to fruition. But definitely one of the top things that we're looking at for 2024 for sure. And then Brock said, so glad you did a show today. Needed it. Enjoyed it so much. Thank you. Glad to hear that. And yeah, I'm glad it got done. I was very terrified when the guys said that the cable guys company said they could get here anywhere between 8 and 5. I'm like, dude, if the dude shows up at like 5 o'clock, like because again, I couldn't even do a lot of prep work. I was really worried I wasn't going to be able to do an episode, but I wanted to do it too. I do want to throw out too, as a side topic, I am going to do the Geekery Abides episode tomorrow. So I will get something scheduled. As soon as I'm done here, I'll throw it on that. So if you are a Geekery Abides listener, you'll just look for the new show for that. I planned to do that Friday night, but again, Friday morning, my internet went out and didn't get fixed until this afternoon. So it has been a long 27, 28 hours without internet. So that's unfortunate. It's funny because that's always been one of my biggest, anxieties about this, and it hasn't been as bad since I moved to fiber internet, but when I had Comcast cable internet, my thought process that always scared me the most of these live streams was that I'd have some kind of internet issue, even if it was just a couple hours. If it was right during the streaming time, it would kill everything, which would suck. I definitely never thought to myself that it would actually be like losing internet for fucking 28 hours or whatever it was. So that really sucked, but I'm glad that it was able to come through despite all that. And I will say as well is to my ISP, at least, whatever chipmunk chewed through my goddamn wire, whatever it was, in the time since I've converted from Comcast to them, I've never had an issue, with them. So it's been wonderful. And even this, it seemed like I don't want to say an act of God, but an act of some fucking rodent probably chewing through my wire or something. So, it wasn't really their fault. And I'm glad they at least got me fixed up today so we could do this episode. And then Travis says, thanks for the support, Mike. I want to deep dive horror with Tad. And I think because earlier on, I think he said something about Geekery Abides. Yeah, I think I've done some Geekery Abides horror shows for sure. And Geekery Abides is another one that I'll talk about some plans tomorrow of what I want to, think about for that show going forward. I still want to keep going with it, but may want to have a little bit, maybe have some guests on and stuff. But and then let's see what else. And then so let me announce the stuff. So I think I've talked about Running Man. I've talked about so we got the dates for next year, and then the March Insanity, and then I'll call it a show. Let's see. So starting next year, looking at the calendar, I have figured out when we'll be starting. Will basically be, I think it is actually a fortnight from now. It's actually getting to the point where it kind of rotates pretty smoothly. I don't know why I think in the earlier years, God, why was that? In the earlier years, it felt like it would be different, and there'd be like gaps a little bit. But now it feels like it's actually kind of the last couple of years it's aligned pretty well. So it'll be actually a fortnight from now on the 13th of January is when we'll be starting the episode for this. I'm still because of the internet outages, I haven't had a chance to test out because I do want to split up the shows a little bit. I don't want to do Geekery Abides and Dark Tower back to back. That's why I'm going to do Geekery Abides tomorrow. So I don't know what it looks like. I might have to play around in January to figure out whether that's like the same day but just a distance of time between them, or whether it's different days like a Friday night and a Saturday afternoon or something. That was what I was going to plan this week if it wasn't for the internet going out. So I'll do Geekery Abides tomorrow, which is very unusual. I'm going to do it in the afternoon, though, so I'm not going to affect any like New Year's Eve plans or anything. Probably about normal Dark Tower time, so like 2 o'clock my time, I believe is what I'll aim for. And then I know it's Sunday. I know it's New Year's Eve, and I know there's football going on. Like I know there's a lot of things, so I don't necessarily. You don't have to show up if you can't. That's totally understandable. But I do want to get the last episode out for 2024 or 2023. For Geekery Abides, and I'll do that tomorrow. So the 13th, so a fortnight from now, we'll be back. We'll just stay right on schedule going into the year. That'll cover us to where we don't land on any holidays. And yeah, that's that. And then March Insanity, that's the last thing I've got. I don't have a drum roll button. I don't know how that works. I guess like I guess we'll just have to go with oi. A drum rolls just seems like a one that would make total sense to have, but I don't have one. So March Insanity, a lot of good topic ideas came in, and I am actually collecting them now. I created a list to write down everything that people send in. So if you want to still send topics, go ahead, even though I've already picked one. I'm not going to, nothing gets thrown away at this point with these. I'm going to keep a list of them so that we always have like something to go to, because I feel like ideas always come up, and I'll even add them to the list myself to where there's never going to be any worry about topics, because there's plenty of topics. So March Insanity 2024 will be coming back, and the topic will be, I know it's it feels somewhat like mirrored, but we're going to go with least favorite Dark Tower moment. So we've done favorite Dark Tower moment. We've done most beloved. We've done most hated. So now we're just going to kind of go, kind of have the symmetry of it to basically go. So 2024 is least favorite Dark Tower moment, is the wording on it. So now basically what that means is that is the topic. So we have basically January and February for everyone to start emailing me. So the email is show@darktowerpalaver.com. Email me your nominations. I want to get as many as I can. I'll probably throw out some posts on social media. Go ahead and comment on those as well. Maybe even in this, in here, whether you're in the live stream still or whether you're watching the video in the future, comment. Basically, we're going to have up until the February, which let me pull up the calendar here. So we got the 13th, and then the 27th, and then it'll be the 10th. Of February for the episode, and then the 24th. So I think what we're going to do, I know that we're generally going to be, the 24th of February would actually be a book club. So maybe I'll even invert the shows that month so that we have a round table, because that will end up being 6 days before we would start the vote. So send in your ideas, and then what we'll do is on the 24th of February, I will announce all the bracket. I'll put it up there. I've still got to figure out the best place to do the votes. I'm going to find something that'll work perfectly. But start sending me your ideas. What at least favorite Dark Tower moments? Start sending them in. And then at the end of it, what I'll do is I'll compile everything. The one that has the most what we'll do is what'll define the 16 is the most nominations. So if one of them has 5 different people have said it, one only has 1. The one that has 5 is probably going to make the list, whereas the one with 1 may not. So don't be bashful. Go ahead and send in your ideas. So least favorite Dark Tower moment, that'll be March Insanity 2024. But yeah, that is pretty much it. I think that we pretty much touched on everything I wanted to, all the news, some of the kind of look aheads for 2024. Really excited for it. Got the date announced. Looking forward to Mike did I see the drum emoji in the chat. Love that. And then Michael says, "Oh, I think you know mine." Oh, indeed, that, and we'll see if that one ends up on the 16 as well. But everyone sending your ideas. We'll get the 16 defined, and then April 1st, the votes, or I'm sorry, March 1st. Voting will start, and then around April 1st, I'll probably just do a YouTube video that's independent, and on April 1st, no shenanigans with April Fools. I'll come on and we'll announce the winner, and we'll do it in blocks like we've always done. The first round 1 week, next round the next week, and then on, and that'll get us to a finals on the last week, and then we'll end up with the winner. So far right now, our March Insanity history, we had most hated in 2019 was voted as Rhea of the Coos. 2022, we came back with it after a little bit of a layover of not having any of these. 2022, we did most beloved character. And again, by one single vote, Eddie Dean ended up beating Oi, which is insane. Oi. And Oi agrees. That was insane. And then 2023, this year, we did Best Dark Tower Moment, and that was the showdown at the Traveler's Rest was the winner of that one. So now, I guess Best is probably... I guess we want to do the same nomenclature. Maybe we should say Worst Dark Tower Moment instead of saying Least Favorite. It's the same idea, essentially, but like maybe that's what we'll say then is Worst Dark Tower Moments. That'll be the nomenclature that we'll use. So So that's what we're calling it. Same idea, it's just different wording, just so it matches. So we have most hated, most beloved, best Dark Tower moment, and we'll have least or worst Dark Tower moment, and then we'll have all different stuff as we move into 2025 and beyond. So, and then Mike says after Flag wins, Peter says I ache. Yeah, and I'm sure that we'll next time I chat with Peter, I'll see, kind of get a better update and see if he's maybe wants to email or something and chime in on something if he wants to. I'll open that up for him. So, but that is it for the podcast for this episode and for this year. Again, we'll be back in a fortnight on the 13th, starting into 2024 for a new episode. Can't wait for the new year. But yeah, that is all the stuff. Let me go ahead and hit the outro stuff. If you want to subscribe to us, you can find us on any podcasting service of your choice. You can stream us on Spotify. You can stream us on Amazon Music or Audible now. If you want to join the live streams, as many people did here, youtube.com/DarkTowerPalaver. Oh, and one other thing that reminded me for some reason, I don't know why, But I do not know exactly how I'm going to do it next year with only one person. That'll be interesting. But I am committing, and I am going to try to hold myself to this time. I've actually been going through my Kindle versions and deleting all my notes from our book club episodes because I do it differently now, so I don't have to highlight. But I'm deleting all my notes because my idea is going to be this year, I want to go through the course of this year, go through my Kindle version and highlight trivia things, and I want to do a trivia contest on the year-end bash next year. So that means that we wouldn't be doing the call-ins necessarily. It would be in the chat, I think. And I know there's all kinds of weird stuff with that. I've seen some people on live streams where what you guys see on your screen is a little bit different than mine in terms of whatever. So you guys will have to just trust me. I'm being fair. Whatever comes up on my screen is going to be the winner. Hopefully it doesn't get too contentious, but hopefully you guys are all cool. You guys are cool. I wouldn't imagine it would get contentious. But yeah, my goal is to go through this year, not necessarily read proper the books, but kind of skim them and then find stuff where it's like, oh shit, that'd be a really cool trivia things. I am going to go, I guess originally I think we talked about it being kind of a Jeopardy thing. I don't know if I'm going to go Jeopardy full on, but I do think I'm probably going to do like layers of questions where it's like you're gonna have easier ones versus you're gonna have harder ones. It's like, what color was Blaine could be an easy one, and then it's like, I don't even know what a harder one would be, but just some obscure ass thing. Like I don't want to be too hard. There's some of these things I've already found, and I haven't even gone that deep into it, where I'm like, God, is that going to be too hard? But I want to balance it out and have like an easy, a medium, and hard, and just do like a trivia contest, and then have maybe a prize potentially as well. So I forgot to announce that as well. I forgot to put that on my notes. I'm glad I remembered it before we ended the show. But if you want to join us for the live streams, you can do that at youtube.com/DarkTowerPalaver. You can be join live and then like in the chat here, as well as if you want to watch in the future, if you want to watch this episode back or any episode back, you always can as well. Anytime, ever since we came to YouTube, every video we've ever done live stream, except for I think one somehow got deleted, which I don't know how the hell it happened. It was some YouTube issue. So I think there's one that's missing. Somebody, I think Peter or someone found it and told me, and I didn't even realize it had happened. So that's unfortunate, but there's one that went missing. It's still in the podcast feed, but YouTube fucking lost it, which is stupid. It's never happened otherwise though, so hopefully we're good there. Show notes are at darktowerpalaver.com, as well as that's the hub at this. That is the spoke at the center, or not the spoke. That is the hub at the center of the Dark Tower universe. All the spokes of the Dark Tower Palaver universe coalesce at the darktowerpalaver.com website. Links to everything that's Dark Tower Palaver can be found there. If you want to support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. There's all different number of levels there. I do apologize to the Patreon people. I know we haven't done any hangouts this tail end of the year. I do promise I'm going to make sure that we're got something. I'll schedule it before I go back to work to where we have it for January and then move out through the rest of the year. I apologize. I slacked on that. Peter and I both got overwhelmed in October, and then November, December, it's just been chaos and mayhem. So sorry about that. But if you want to support the show, you can do that there, as well as be part of the Discord. That's always fun. Always fun to chat with people throughout the week on the Discord server. That comes with every level of the thing, as well as at the top level if you want to guest host a show. If you're at the top level, the Gunslingers of the Eld level, you will be able to come on and guest star on an episode. So that's all the rundown of the stuff. And I will sign. Let's see. Hashtag DTP 2024. The prize is picking the next hashtag, and then bring on the trivia. Travis says, I love trivia. Yeah, it's something I've been teasing for a while. I just have not been very good about going about gathering the data, because that's the hard part. But what I've done is, I think through the three books, I think halfway through the third book, we changed how we were doing our book clubs, and we stopped highlighting. So I have to go through book 1, 2, and then a good chunk of book 3, and delete all the notes from the book clubs where we just highlighted and put notes and stuff. I have to delete all that shit so it's completely fresh, because Amazon doesn't have a refresh button on their Kindle where you can just delete everything, unfortunately. I can get why people may not want that, but I would love that in my circumstance. Because then I'll go through and I can just highlight in like green, yellow, and red for the different levels, and I'm gonna make a concerted effort to get that done so we have a trivia for the 2024. And if I gather enough questions, hopefully we don't go through them all. Maybe it'll be a yearly thing, or we can do trivia stuff on the year-end bashes. So. That is it for this episode and for 2024. Yeah, Travis Thanos snapped those notes. No kidding. I even reached out to them like, is there any way to just mass delete these fucking things? And there was no answer. So I was like, God damn it. So like literally I was even looking at potentially coding, like just doing like Python or something, writing a computer program that would actually automate and go and just hit like delete, click yes, because it like, do you want to delete, and you just like automate it, because it's just gonna take for fucking ever to go through these all. So I've even like dabbled in potentially doing an automated program to go through and do it, so I don't have to sit here and click for how many hours. So and then Mikey, they'll only mass delete them if you want to keep them. Yeah, no shit, exactly. That's exactly the thing. And maybe that's why they don't offer it, because they just assume that most people that highlight shit, they're not podcasters, right? Most people are highlighting stuff are probably highlighting because they want to refer to it later, and they're probably highlighting very scantily, whereas like me, from the podcasting perspective, it was very heavily highlighted, so there's a lot to delete. So yeah, I can understand why they don't have it, but it's annoying for me as a podcaster. So yeah, that's coming 2024. See you in a fortnight as we kick off 2024 in January. And but then of course sign off here on the podcast as we always do by saying long days and pleasant nights. Oops. Look at that. Push the wrong button. Meant to push that one. All right, everyone in the chat. Thank y'all. Long days and pleasant nights. Thank y'all for joining. Thanks throughout the year. It's been a wonderful joy to have y'all here with me in the chat and being part of the show and supporting the show in every way. Just listening is awesome. And anyone that supports on the Patreon, love that too. Love everything. Love the emails. Love everything. So you guys are awesome. Can't wait to come back in a fortnight for episode... Oh, what would that be? I guess we're restarting the year. Oh, yeah, because there's 3 in this month. I was like, why are we going round table to round table? Because it will be a fortnight from now. We'll have a round table number 146. Yeah, then we'll do the book club at the second episode of January, and we'll be kicked off into 2024. So see you guys. Long days and pleasant nights.